Welcome, welcome. You're here at Fanfic Adventure. Today we present to you, What If Naruto Ate the Human Fruit, model sun god Nika and became the pirate king of Konoha. Like and subscribe if you want more awesome stories. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Chapter 1, The Fruit. The mission scroll was fake. Naruto knew it the second he unrolled it, standing in the middle of Iruka-sensei's classroom with 27 pairs of eyes watching him, either with pity or with that particular brand of smug satisfaction that only kids who'd already passed could manage. The scroll said Shadow Clone Jutsu at the top, but the chakra instructions beneath it were deliberately scrambled: inverted hand seals, wrong breath timing, a trap designed to make him look stupid in front of everyone who mattered. Mizuki-sensei was smiling. That alone should have told Naruto everything. Well, Mizuki said, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, that easy grin sitting on his face like it belonged there. Go ahead, Naruto. Show us what you've got. Naruto looked at the scroll again. Then at Mizuki. Then at Iruka, who was watching from the back of the room with an expression that was doing a lot of work trying to stay neutral. This is wrong, Naruto said. Excuse me? The scroll. He held it up. The hand seals are backwards. If I did this, I'd blow myself up. The room went quiet in a different way. Not the entertained quiet of watching the deadlast embarrass himself. The uncomfortable quiet of a plan derailing. Mizuki's smile didn't move. Which was itself a tell. You must be reading it incorrectly. Maybe if you paid more attention in class. I paid attention. Naruto rolled the scroll back up and set it on the desk. You switched the third and fifth seals in the sequence and flipped the chakra flow direction. That's not a mistake. You'd have to do that on purpose. He said it completely flatly, without accusation, which somehow made it worse. Mizuki pushed off the wall. Iruka moved forward from the back. And Naruto, who had failed this exam twice already and had approximately zero remaining patience for people who thought being cruel to him was clever, did something completely impulsive. He walked out. Not dramatically. Not with a speech. He just picked up his jacket from the back of his chair, said, "I'm gonna go find an actual scroll," and left through the front door while Mizuki was mid-sentence. The Konoha archives were in a building most academy students didn't know existed, a squat, serious structure wedged between the mission assignment hall and the Hokage administrative annex, with seals on the door that were supposed to keep unauthorized personnel out. Naruto had broken the lock 3 times before and the ANBU had always caught him within minutes, but this time he had a different problem pressing on him, and breaking things felt like the appropriate response. The lock gave on the second try. Inside, it smelled like dust and old paper and something else underneath. Something that had been sealed in long enough to develop its own personality. Naruto moved through the shelves by memory, because he'd been in here enough times that he'd mapped the layout across 3 separate break-ins, past the jutsu records and the mission histories and the bloodline documentation that he wasn't supposed to read but had definitely read, toward the back section where the truly weird stuff lived. He wasn't looking for anything in particular. He found it anyway. The fruit was sitting on a shelf between a water-warped journal from the Third Shinobi War and a ceramic container labeled Spirit Vessel, Do Not Open, which Naruto had opened on a previous visit and found empty. The fruit had no label except a small card that read, in cramped official handwriting, "Unknown biological specimen, recovered from shipwreck debris, land of water coastal recovery, 30 years prior. Botanical origin unidentified. Chakra inert. Do not consume." It was the color of a sunset having an argument with itself. Deep red swirling into gold, with a spiral pattern across the skin that looked almost deliberate, like someone had carved it there and then thought better of explaining why. It was roughly the size of his fist and smelled like nothing. Not like fruit. Not like anything. Naruto picked it up. It was warm. Not room temperature warm. Warm, like it had a pulse. He turned it over in his hands. The spiral pattern seemed to shift slightly when he wasn't looking directly at it, the way a campfire looked different in your peripheral vision versus straight on. The card said do not consume in the kind of handwriting that suggested the person writing it had been deeply serious about it. Naruto bit into it immediately. The taste hit him like a physical force, the worst thing he had ever put in his mouth, and he had once eaten a bowl of ramen that had been sitting out for 2 days because he was 11 and starving and it was there. This was categorically worse. It tasted like someone had boiled freedom into a liquid and then let it go rancid, which shouldn't have been a describable flavor but somehow was. He chewed. He swallowed. His eyes watered. That, he said to no one, was disgusting. Then his body caught fire. Not literally. But every nerve he had lit up simultaneously like someone had run lightning through his entire circulatory system, and he dropped to one knee on the archive floor with his hand braced against the shelf and his teeth clenched hard enough to hurt. The chakra in his coils, which had always been massive, always been unruly, always operated at a pressure that made Medic Neen wince when they examined him, detonated outward in every direction at once. The shelves rattled. A jar fell and shattered. 3 seals on the wall glowed briefly and then popped out of existence like soap bubbles. And inside him, in that deep red dark place where Kurama lived behind bars that the fox had spent years testing for weaknesses, something ancient woke up. "What is that?" Kurama said. It wasn't a question. Naruto couldn't answer because he was currently experiencing what felt like his body being disassembled and rebuilt from the inside by someone who was working from a blueprint they'd never seen before. His bones felt wrong. Not broken, wrong. Like they were deciding whether they needed to be bones at all. "What did you eat, you absolute idiot child?" "I don't, there was a fruit, a devil fruit." Something shifted in Kurama's voice. Something that was not quite recognition and not quite fear and sat exactly in the space between them. "That is, I have not felt that resonance that is impossibly old. What is it doing to me?" "Rewriting you." A pause that felt like the fox was thinking very hard. "It is rewriting the rules of your body. Do you understand what that means?" "Not even a little." "It means," Kurama said slowly, "that your body is going to become a joke. In the theological sense." Naruto's hand sank into the floor. He stared at it. His hand was inside the stone floor of the archive, wrist deep, fingers spread against nothing, completely unharmed. He pulled it out and the stone closed behind it like water. His hand was fine. His hand was perfectly, completely fine. "Okay," he said. His voice was remarkably steady for someone who had just put their hand through solid rock. "Okay. He stretched his arm toward the far wall. It stretched. Like rubber. Like his arm was made of something that had never heard of the concept of a fixed length. It crossed the 12 feet of archive space and his hand touched the opposite shelf and then he pulled it back and it contracted smoothly and he stood there with his completely normal arm back at his side and his brain making sounds like a door with a broken hinge. "Okay," he said again. "The fruit's power and your chakra are doing something they should not be able to do," Kurama said, and now there was something new in his voice, genuine, reluctant fascination. "Your chakra is flowing through the rubber structure. You should not be able to combine these. A devil fruit user cannot use chakra the way they used to. But you are, the Nine-Tails chakra is adapting to the fruit's nature. It is using it as a medium. Is that good? It is unprecedented. Beat. Which for you is basically the same thing as good." Naruto flexed his fingers. They were perfectly normal. He pushed his fist into the archive wall. It went through. He pulled it back. He could feel the stone around his knuckles while they were inside it, pressure without pain, the world touching him without being able to hurt him. He started grinning. The grin started small and didn't stop. He came back to the academy an hour late, which everyone had expected. He came back smelling like old paper and something electric, which nobody had expected. Mizuki had already left. Irika was still there, sitting at his desk, which Naruto also hadn't expected. "Where did you go?" Irika asked. His voice was careful in the way teachers' voices got when they were deciding whether to be angry or worried and hadn't landed on one yet. Archives, Naruto said. The archives are sealed. Yeah. Iruka rubbed his face. Naruto, I want to try the exam again. He sat down in the front row, which he never did. Real scroll this time. The exam is over. Then give me a different one. Naruto looked at him directly, and Iruka, who had known this kid for 5 years, who had watched him crash against the walls of the academy like a wave that refused to accept that it was just water, felt something he couldn't quite name. Naruto looked the same. Bright, messy, the whisker marks on his cheeks, the jacket that was one size too big because he'd bought it expecting to grow into it and then hadn't grown as much as he'd planned. But something in the way he was sitting was different. What happened to your hand? Iruka said. Naruto looked at his right hand, where there were traces of stone dust on his knuckles. I hit a wall. And the wall? Lost. Iruka stared at him for a long moment. Then he opened his desk drawer and pulled out a standard academy graduation scroll. He set it on the desk between them. Shadow clone jutsu, Iruka said. Perform it correctly and you pass. 1 attempt. Naruto picked up the scroll. Read it. Set it back down. Made the cross-shaped seal with both hands, pulled a breath in from his diaphragm the way the scroll described, and said, Shadow clone jutsu. The room filled with Narutos. Not 2 or 3. Not even 10. The classroom was suddenly, completely, wall-to-wall with identical orange-jacketed Narutos, all standing at attention, all looking at Iruka with the same expression, and Iruka grabbed the edge of his desk because the chakra in the room had just reached a level that should not have been physically possible for a 12-year-old, and also several of the clones in the back row appeared to have rubber arms for some reason. That's enough, Iruka said. His voice came out slightly higher than intended. The clones vanished. Naruto was sitting back in the front row with his hands in his lap, looking completely calm. Iruka picked up a headband from his desk drawer. He'd been keeping a spare there for 3 years, against hope, telling himself it wasn't superstition. He walked to Naruto and tied it around his forehead himself. The next morning, Sasuke Uchiha showed up to the academy rooftop for the traditional, new genin meet their teammates, assembly and found Naruto already there, sitting on the railing at the roof's edge with his legs dangling 40 feet above the street below. This was not unusual behavior for Naruto. What was unusual was that Naruto's legs were longer than they should have been, hanging down an extra 2 feet below where the railing was, and then Naruto noticed Sasuke looking and sort of, reeled them back in, the way you'd retract a fishing line, and his legs were normal length again. Sasuke stared. What, he said. Morning, Naruto said. What was that? What was what? Your legs. My legs are great, Naruto said. You should see what my arms can do. Sasuke's jaw tightened in the way it did when he was processing something he didn't have a category for. He walked to the railing and stood beside Naruto, which was 3 feet closer than Sasuke Uchiha had voluntarily stood to Naruto Uzumaki in recorded history. What happened to you? Sasuke said. Still not a question. Sasuke had a way of saying things that were questions as though asking them was beneath him. I ate something weird. What kind of weird? Naruto thought about it. The permanent kind. Sasuke looked at him for a long time. Naruto looked back without looking away, which used to make Sasuke's eye twitch because Naruto had always seemed to need something from people and looking at them like that was part of asking for it. He didn't look like he needed anything right now. He looked like he was waiting to see what Sasuke was going to do next, the way you waited when you already knew the answer. You're going to be a problem, Sasuke said. Naruto grinned. Yeah. Sakura arrived 3 minutes later, slightly out of breath, and found her 2 male teammates standing at the railing together in what could generously be called a temporary ceasefire. She stopped in the doorway to assess the situation, because Sakura was 12 and already understood that some rooms needed assessing before you walked into them. Why does it feel weird up here? She said. Because of him, Sasuke said, nodding at Naruto. What did you do? Sakura looked at Naruto. Nothing yet, Naruto said, which was both technically true and the most ominous possible answer. Kakashi arrived 47 minutes late. Nobody who had been waiting on a rooftop for 47 minutes with Naruto Uzumaki emerged from that experience unchanged. Sakura had gone through irritation, acceptance, and was now in the bargaining stage. Sasuke was doing what Sasuke did when he had to wait, which was stand very still and radiate contempt until the object of his contempt arrived. Naruto had spent 47 minutes experimenting. He'd stretched his arm from one end of the roof to the other 17 times. He'd tested what happened when you hit your rubber fist against stone at different speeds. The answer was that the stone broke and his hand was fine. He'd discovered that his voice sounded different when he breathed in a specific way, a resonance in his chest that wasn't quite chakra and wasn't quite sound, something that made the air feel pressurized and the pigeons on the adjacent roof uncomfortable. He was doing that last thing when Kakashi appeared. Kakashi Hatake had survived things that broke most people. He had a file of traumatic experiences long enough to wallpaper a room. He was one of the most composed individuals in the entire village, and his face, the half that was visible, was specifically trained to give nothing away. He materialized on the rooftop, looked at his 3 new students, and then stopped. Not because of Sasuke, whose chakra signature was already sharp and promising. Not because of Sakura, who was clearly intelligent and currently furious about something. Because of Naruto. Naruto's chakra signature was not what it had been 2 days ago. Kakashi had read all their files. He'd pulled Naruto specifically because of the nine-tailed seal, because he wanted to understand the containment parameters. The file described a massive, chaotic, poorly controlled chakra reserve attached to a 12-year-old with no instinct for subtlety. What Kakashi was currently sensing was, larger than that. Not just the nine-tails anymore. The nine-tails was still there, but it was threaded through something else, something with a different frequency, something that felt like sunlight felt if sunlight were sentient and deeply amused. You're late, Naruto said. I got lost on the road of life. Kakashi sat down across from them. Tell me about yourselves. Dreams, ambitions. I'll start. He did not start. He looked at them and waited. I want to restore my clan, Sasuke said immediately, which was the most words he'd voluntarily said all morning. Sakura said something about her goals that was mostly directed at Sasuke, which Kakashi filed under will develop into a real person with time. Naruto was last. Kakashi looked at him with his one visible eye. Naruto. I want to be the freest person alive, Naruto said. Not, I want to be Hokage. Not the speech he'd been giving since he was 7. Something different. Something that hadn't existed in him yesterday. Kakashi's eye curved. Not quite a smile. Something more careful than that. Interesting. You think so? I think, Kakashi said slowly, that you're going to be very difficult to train. Probably, Naruto agreed. But not because I can't learn. Because I learn faster than you'll expect. That was also not something Naruto had said before. Kakashi put a very small flag in his mental file cabinet next to Naruto Uzumaki and left it there. The survival test happened the next day. 2 bells. 1 Kakashi. 3 students. Standard. Kakashi had run this test dozens of times and the dynamic was always the same in the first few minutes: panic, separation, failed individual attacks, before the interesting part began. He materialized in the forest clearing and waited. Sasuke came first, because Sasuke always came first, moving through the trees with the Uchiha instinct for angles and approach vectors. His shuriken was aimed well. Kakashi sidestepped it, grabbed Sasuke's wrist, redirected his momentum, and had him face down in the grass in 4 seconds. Impressive attempt for his age. Sakura came second, which also tracked. She hit him with a genjutsu layered surprisingly well for a first attempt. He dispelled it, and she ran, which was the correct call. He waited for Naruto. He waited longer. He heard something from the trees to his left. Then his right. Then above him. Then, the ground erupted. An arm punched up through the earth below his feet, a single arm, extended from what had to be 20 feet away at minimum, because Naruto was visible standing at the tree line with one arm fully extended and about 8 feet too long, expression concentrated, and the fist that had come up through the soil grabbed at Kakashi's ankle. Kakashi jumped back. The arm retracted. Naruto was already moving. He moved differently now. Not the way Naruto had always moved, which was forward and impulsive and full of telegraphed intent. He moved like he was genuinely entertained by the concept of space, like distance was a suggestion he was currently choosing to respect out of politeness. He came in fast and Kakashi flowed into a block, and then Naruto's arm bent around the block, not at the elbow, from the middle of the forearm, and tapped Kakashi on the shoulder from a direction that shouldn't have been accessible from his attack angle. The bell was in Kakashi's front left pocket. Naruto's rubber fingers were in it for exactly 1 second before Kakashi caught his wrist and did something with his chakra that disrupted the contact. Naruto bounced back, landed, and grinned. "Almost," Naruto said. "Almost," Kakashi agreed. His visible eye had not changed expression but something behind it had. The test went longer than usual. Sasuke came back and engaged Kakashi from one side while Naruto came from the other, and the coordination between them was raw and unpolished but the underlying instinct for it was there. They got one bell between them, Sasuke, by playing off a distraction Naruto created, and failed to get the second, and they ate together at the training post, which was the actual point. Kakashi watched Naruto eat, 3 bowls of rice, 2 servings of everything else, a frankly alarming quantity of food for someone his size, and said, "What happened to you?" Naruto looked up. "What do you mean?" "You know what I mean." Naruto put his chopsticks down. Looked at Sakura, who was listening hard without looking like she was listening. Looked at Sasuke, who was definitely listening and not pretending otherwise. "I ate something," he said. "In the archives." "The archives are sealed. The seal on the lock is rated for standard chakra manipulation," Naruto said. "It's not rated for someone who can just put their hand through the door." Kakashi was quiet for a moment. "What did you eat?" "A fruit. Red. Spiral pattern. Old." Something moved across Kakashi's face that he controlled very quickly. "Was there a card with it?" "Yeah. Said not to eat it." "And you ate it." "It felt warm," Naruto said, like that was a complete explanation. And maybe for him, Kakashi thought, it was. Kakashi looked at the sky. Looked at the 3 12-year-olds sitting in front of him, one of whom had just casually committed an act that might reclassify the balance of power in the entire village. "The Hokage needs to know about this," he said. "Okay," Naruto said. "Can I finish eating first?" They walked to the Hokage tower while the sun was going down, which meant the streets were orange and long-shadowed and the market stalls were closing and the village smelled like cooking food and turned earth and the particular evening smell of somewhere people actually lived. Hiruzen Sarutobi was behind his desk with 3 mission scrolls and a pipe, both of which he set aside when Kakashi walked in with a genin team behind him. "Kakashi," he said. "This is unusual." "Lord Hokage." Kakashi's tone was careful in a specific way. "We had an incident during the team's examination period." Define incident. Naruto accessed the lower archives yesterday prior to his final graduation exam. Hiruzen looked at Naruto. Naruto met his eyes without flinching, which was something he'd always done. The kid had never learned to be appropriately deferential to authority, which the village resented and Hiruzen had privately always respected. "What did you take?" Hiruzen asked. "I didn't take anything," Naruto said. "I ate something." The pipe lowered. "The specimen case on shelf E7. I don't know the shelf number." "Red fruit. Spirals." Hiruzen closed his eyes. "Opened them." He looked, suddenly and briefly, very old. Kakashi. Step outside with the other students, please. Kakashi moved. Sakura and Sasuke followed him. The door closed. Naruto stood in front of the desk alone. Do you know what you ate? Hiruzen asked. Kurama called it a devil fruit, Naruto said. Said it was old. Really old. He recognized something about it. The fox, Hiruzen stopped. Started again. We recovered that specimen 30 years ago from a shipwreck off the water country coast. Our analysts couldn't identify its origin. Every natural philosophy expert we consulted said it shouldn't exist. The chakra properties alone were unprecedented. He looked at Naruto steadily. It was labeled do not consume for very good reasons. What reasons? Because we didn't know what it would do. He leaned forward. What did it do? Naruto considered the desk between them. Then he put his hand through it. Not on it. Through it. His palm passed through the surface of the Hokage's ancient oak desk like it was warm water, visible to the wrist on the other side, and then he drew it back and the desk was exactly as it had been, unmarked. Hiruzen looked at the desk. At Naruto's hand. At Naruto. I see, he said. It also does this. Naruto stretched one arm, just partway, 3 feet past its natural length, and contracted it. He said it casually, the way you described a new haircut. Hiruzen was quiet for a long time. Outside the window, Konoha was doing its evening things, bells, voices, the smell of dinner, the dogs barking at something on the far side of the village. Are you frightened? Hiruzen asked. No, Naruto said. Should I be? Most people would be. I'm not most people. He wasn't being arrogant. He was being Naruto, which was a different thing entirely. Hiruzen picked up his pipe. Set it down without lighting it. The council will hear about this, he said. There are people in this village who will want to study you. Who will want to restrict you. Who will use what you just showed me as justification for increased, I know, Naruto said. They already treat me like I'm dangerous. This is different. This is, I know, Naruto said again. Not dismissively. Just steadily. He was 12 and he already knew the shape of what was coming, which was heartbreaking in a way Hiruzen felt in his chest and knew he couldn't show. Lord Hokage. Can I go? Hiruzen looked at him. At this kid who had grown up in the margins of the village, who had learned to be loud because being invisible had hurt too much, who had eaten an ancient impossible fruit and come here without being told to because it had seemed like the right thing to do. Yes, he said. You can go. Naruto turned toward the door. Naruto. He stopped. Be careful. I will, Naruto said. And then, because he was still Naruto, probably. Late that night, Naruto sat on the roof of his apartment building. The village spread out below him, all lit windows and winding streets, the Hokage monument at the far end with its 4 carved faces watching the dark. He'd eaten dinner, 2 instant ramen, 3 rice balls, a bag of chips, and still felt like something was burning through him faster than food could fix it. The Nika power was settling into his body like a guest who intended to stay permanently and was rearranging the furniture. You should sleep, Kurama said. The fox's presence in his chest was different now. Less like a prisoner and more like something pacing alongside him in parallel. The adaptation is still completing. I feel great, Naruto said. You feel elevated. That is different from great. Is there something bad coming? Kurama considered. There is always something bad coming. But what you are now, I have old memories, Kit. Older than the shinobi world. There is something in those memories that recognizes what you ate today. A legend. A god who made the world laugh. A pause. He was not the kind of god who sat above the world and passed judgment. He was the kind who walked into the world and refused to stop dancing. Naruto thought about that. That sounds exhausting. It sounds like you. A laugh escaped him before he could stop it. Below, a cat on a nearby roof looked up at him irritably and then went back to whatever cats did at midnight. The Hokage said people will want to control me, Naruto said. People always want to control things they don't understand. They will be afraid of you. They're already afraid of me. They were afraid of the nine tails inside you, Kurama corrected. Now they will be afraid of you. That is different. That is more uncomfortable for them. Another pause, longer. And more dangerous for them. Because the nine tails they could contain. A person who has decided to be free, can't be caged, Naruto finished. The fox went quiet. Not an unhappy quiet. Something more like the quiet of something that had been in a cage for a very long time, feeling the walls and thinking about them differently. Naruto stretched his arm out into the dark, reaching toward the Hokage monument, fingers spread. Not reaching for anything. Just reaching, the way you did when you were testing the size of the world. It was bigger than it used to be. He brought his arm back. Looked at his completely normal hand in the dark. The drums, Kurama said quietly. In those old memories. The god beat drums, and the world beat with them. Everything moved to that rhythm. Everything that was locked, the fox stopped. What? Opened, Kurama said. And there was something in his voice that Naruto had never heard from him before. Something like longing. Everything that was locked, opened. Naruto sat on the roof for a long time after that, listening to the village breathe, and somewhere under the regular rhythm of his own heartbeat, he could hear it, faint, barely there, like something remembered from before he was born. Drums. Tum. 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 He pressed his hand against his chest. They beat back. In the Konoha council chamber, 2 hours after midnight, a ANBU runner delivered a sealed report to Danzo Shimura. He read it by candlelight, alone in his private office, the seals on the walls keeping sound from traveling in any direction. The report described what the archivist had discovered when checking the lower shelves, the lock broken cleanly, the specimen case open, the red fruit gone. Danzo set the report on his desk. He was not a man who panicked. He was a man who planned, and he had plans for most contingencies, and most of those plans were built on the assumption that the threats he needed to manage were things that could be measured, predicted, contained. He picked up his pen. In the margin of the report, he wrote 3 words. Reevaluate all projections. Chapter 2, The Sound of Drums. The forest of death had a smell. Most people noticed it as a warning, decay and wet soil and something older underneath, the particular perfume of a place where things went in and didn't always come out. The examiners at the gate called it, character-building atmosphere. The corpse beetles in the undergrowth called it home. Naruto called it Tuesday. He stood at the gate with his team while Anko Mitarashi paced in front of the assembled genin like something that had been wound too tight and was looking for an excuse to unspring. She had a smile that made the air feel thinner. The rules of the second exam were simple: survive 5 days, get both scrolls, reach the tower in the center. Simple the way a forest fire was simple, the concept was clear, the execution was lethal. Any questions? Anko said. Nobody raised a hand. Smart crowd. One more thing. She stopped pacing. Sign the waivers. The village accepts no responsibility for what happens to you in there. She grinned at the silence. That means some of you are going to die. Statistically. Just so we're all clear. Naruto looked at the forest. The forest looked back with about 1,000 hidden eyes. He stretched his neck, not metaphorically, actually stretched it, 3 inches further than it should have gone, and cracked it, and went back to normal length, and Sakura beside him made a sound like someone stepping on a cat. Will you stop doing that without warning? She hissed. It's faster than warming up, Naruto said. It looks like your spine is trying to escape. It's fine. My spine can't escape. He thought about it. Probably. Sasuke on his other side said nothing, which was how Sasuke said everything. But his shoulder was fractionally angled toward Naruto's, which over the past 3 weeks of team training had come to mean I'm listening and I have a plan and I'm going to pretend I came up with it independently. Heaven Scroll, Sasuke said quietly. We have Earth. We need one team that has heaven, Sakura confirmed. She'd been studying the other genin since they'd arrived, cataloging. The sound team has it. 3 of them. They've been watching us since the gate. Naruto had noticed the sound team. Hard not to, they had a specific kind of stillness that wasn't patience, more like coiled wire, each of them calibrated toward the others in a practiced way that meant they trained together for a long time and hurt things together for longer. The one in the center with the bandaged arms hadn't stopped looking at Naruto since they'd assembled. Not at the team. At Naruto. The one in the middle knows something, Naruto said. What makes you say that? Sakura asked. He's looking at me like he's trying to figure out whether to be excited or scared. Sasuke's shoulder moved slightly. Both, probably. Yeah, Naruto agreed. Both. The gates opened. 60-something genin poured into the dark between the trees, and the forest of death swallowed them whole. Team 7 moved fast and quiet, which was not a combination anyone who'd watched their first weeks of training would have predicted. The credit went roughly equally to Sasuke's tactical instincts, Sakura's ability to read terrain, and Naruto's new relationship with distance. He could cover ground in a way that had stopped making physical sense, a stretch here, a compression there, his body folding space around itself with the cheerful disregard for geometry that had come to define everything he did now. They had their Earth Scroll. They needed heaven. The most direct path was the most honest one. We could wait for a weaker team, Sakura said, moving through the undergrowth without disturbing it in a way she'd been working on since their first training session with Kakashi. We could, Sasuke said. We're not going to, Naruto said. We're not going to, Sasuke agreed. Sakura looked between them. You two agreeing on something is somehow more alarming than you arguing. We agree when the answer's obvious, Naruto said. There's a team with a heaven scroll 200 meters northeast, they've been parallel to us since the 3rd marker, and they're going to try to take our scroll at the next water source because that's the only place in this sector where terrain forces you into the open. Both of them looked at him. I can hear them, he said. My ears are, he waved a hand. Better now. Also one of them stepped on a particular kind of beetle that only lives within 50 meters of standing water, so. Sakura stared. You identified a beetle by sound. It crunches different. Another long pause. I hate this forest, Sakura said, not for the first time. The rain team came at them from 3 directions, which was good planning. The water source opened into a small clearing ringed by roots, visibility limited, escape routes narrowed, exactly the killing ground a tactically minded genin would choose. 3 against 3, all of them a year older than Team 7, scrolls visible in the leader's vest. Naruto walked into the clearing first. This was not the plan. The plan, as articulated by Sasuke in approximately 30 terse words, involved Sakura drawing their attention while Sasuke approached from their blind side and Naruto created a diversion. Naruto had listened to this plan and then walked into the clearing first, which Sasuke filed under I should account for this. Hey, Naruto said to the rain team leader, a tall girl with a weighted staff and the kind of calm that came from hurting a lot of people. You have a heaven scroll? She looked at him. Yes. Cool. We have Earth. Can we just trade and move on? We need to keep both, she said. Those are the rules of the exam. That's not a rule, that's a strategy. The rule is you need one of each to enter the tower. If we take yours, we can trade the extra for safe passage from another team. Or, Naruto said, we could fight, and you'd lose, and we could all save some time. The girl's expression didn't change. She was good at that. There are 3 of you and 3 of us. And your first years. That's true, Naruto said. But I'm also, he stretched his arm out to his left, about 12 feet, and picked an apple off a tree at the clearing's edge. He brought it back, bit into it, chewed. Different than I look. The Rain team leader watched his arm do that. Watched it come back. Looked at the apple. Her 2 teammates had shifted their stances in the way people did when their threat assessment just recalibrated. What are you? She asked. A genin from Konoha, Naruto said. Who would really like to get through this forest without anyone getting badly hurt? He looked at her directly, no performance in it. I mean that genuinely. Give us your heaven scroll and we'll share our food supplies and give you a sector map. We have a good one. Fair trade. The girl was quiet. Her teammates looked at her. Sora, one of them said, uncertain. Sora looked at Naruto for another long moment, in the way you looked at something when your gut was telling you something your pride didn't want to hear. She reached into her vest and held out the heaven scroll. The map better be accurate, she said. It's extremely accurate, Sakura said, materializing from the trees and holding it out immediately. We can also mark the locations of the 3 most aggressive predator territories in this sector, which will save you approximately 1 near-death experience per day. Sora took the map. Looked at it. Some of the carefully maintained calm left her expression, replaced by something more genuine, a young person who was tired and had been operating on threat response for too long. This is good. I know, Sakura said. I made it. They parted ways at the water's edge, the Rain team moving northwest, Team 7 moving toward the tower's center. Sasuke appeared from where he'd been positioned in the trees, fell into step beside Naruto, and was quiet for about 45 seconds. You could have just fought them, he said. Yeah, Naruto agreed. Why didn't you? Because winning a fight we didn't need to have isn't interesting, Naruto said. Winning the whole exam without hurting anyone who didn't deserve it, that's interesting. Sasuke chewed on that. You said anyone who didn't deserve it. Implying someone does. The sound team, Naruto said. The one in the middle was still in his head, that specific, directed attention, the excitement-fear mixture. Yeah. Them, I want to fight. They found the sound team's camp on the second night. Naruto found it first, heard them, 300 meters out, moving through undergrowth with the kind of deliberateness that meant they were hunting rather than traveling. He signaled Sasuke and Sakura to hold position and went still himself, which he'd gotten unsettlingly good at. Rubber didn't make noise unless it wanted to. His footfalls had become optional. The sound team came through the trees and stopped 15 feet away from where Team 7 had been sitting, because Team 7 was no longer sitting there. They were in the trees, above, watching. 3 of them, Dosu Kinyuta with his sound arm device, Zaku Obumi with his air pressure tubes, and Kin Tsuchi with her Senbon and mirror wire. Efficient, specialized, built around Dosu's ability to coordinate their attacks. Naruto had watched them for 2 days and had a clear picture of how they operated. Where are they? Kin said quietly. Up, said a voice that was not any of theirs. All 3 sound genin looked up. Naruto was sitting on a branch 15 feet above them, legs dangling, eating a rice ball, looking relaxed in the way a person looked relaxed when relaxed was a choice they were actively making. Beside him, Sasuke had a kunai balanced on his finger. Sakura was on the branch above, already forming seals. You've been tracking us since the gate, Naruto said. You had 3 opportunities to ambush us and didn't take any of them. So you're either waiting for something specific or you're here for someone specific. He looked at Dosu. Which is it? Dosu's mechanical arm shifted. Both, he said, and his voice was thoughtful in a way that didn't fit the moment. We were sent to deal with Team 7. Specifically, you. By who? Our employer, Dosu said. We were told you had an unusual chakra signature. That you would be valuable to study. Orochimaru, Sasuke said. Flat. A beat. We don't discuss our employer. You don't need to, Sasuke said. He's the only person who'd send sound genin to the leaf exams as a collection run. Dosu's mask gave nothing away. But his body language confirmed it. So, Naruto said, dropping from the branch and landing in the clearing with a sound like nothing, no impact, no thud, just presence. Your boss sent you after me. Not after Sasuke. Initially, Dosu said carefully. The orders were amended. He wants the Uchiha as well. But you were the primary objective. What did he tell you about me? That your chakra had changed recently. That there was something inside you worth having. Naruto thought about that. Orochimaru, who'd infiltrated the exam disguised as a grass genin, Kakashi had told them this, warned them specifically, had noticed his chakra signature changing and had redirected his attention. The Snake Sanin's legendary ability to identify power worth stealing, calibrated toward Naruto. He felt something that was not quite flattery and not quite fury and sat comfortably between them. Tell your boss, Naruto said, that what's inside me isn't for having. Dosu activated his sound device. The wave hit the clearing like a physical thing, a dissonant screech that attacked the inner ear and disrupted balance and chakra flow simultaneously. Sakura grabbed her branch. Sasuke's kunai clattered out of his hand. 3 birds fell out of trees 50 meters in every direction. Naruto stood in the middle of it. Completely fine. The sound wave hit him and traveled through him and came out the other side. He looked down at himself, mildly curious. Kurama, in the back of his mind, made a sound that might have been a laugh. Rubber, the fox said, which covered it adequately. That usually works, Zaku said. He sounded genuinely put out. I don't have an inner ear anymore, Naruto explained. Not in the traditional sense. Zaku fired his air pressure tubes. The compressed air cannons hit Naruto in the chest and he bent backward with the force, not staggered, bent, his torso folding back at an angle that had no business being survivable, then snapping forward with the returning momentum, the rebounded force amplified by the rubber structure, and his fist connected with Zaku's guard with a crack that sent him skidding 20 feet through the undergrowth. Kin threw Senbon. They bounced off Naruto's skin and fell to the ground. She stared at him. He shrugged apologetically. Dosu fired another sound wave, this one concentrated, directed, less area and more depth, a penetrating frequency meant to reach past the outer layer and disrupt the organs underneath. Naruto felt it differently this time, a vibration in his chest, and for a second he felt it resonate with something. The drums. The frequency hit the drums and the drums pushed back. The air around Naruto tightened. Not visibly. But every genin in the clearing felt it, a pressure, like the moment before lightning, like the drop in sound before something very large moved. Dosu's next step faltered. Kin took an involuntary step backward. Even Zaku, coming back through the undergrowth, slowed. Naruto hadn't moved. But the weight of him in the space had changed completely. I'm going to give you the same offer I gave the Rain team, he said. His voice was absolutely conversational. You can walk away. We're not here for your scrolls, we already have what we need, and I don't want to hurt you. You were hired to do a job. That job isn't happening. So. Dosu looked at him for a long, measuring moment. The mechanical genius behind that mask was doing calculations. Our employer will not be pleased, Dosu said finally. That's between you and him, Naruto said. Not between you and me. Another pause. Dosu lowered his arm. He gestured to his team. They withdrew into the trees, and the forest closed around them, and then they were gone. Zaku was the last to leave. He stopped at the tree line and looked back at Naruto with something that wasn't quite animosity, more like the look of someone who has just been forced to update their model of the world. Then he was gone too. Sakura dropped from the branch above. They'll report back to Orochimaru. I know, Naruto said. And he'll come himself. I know. You're not worried about that. He looked at her. Should I be? She opened her mouth. Closed it. You're insufferable, she said, which was the most affectionate thing she'd said to him since they'd entered the forest. Orochimaru found them on day 3. He came as a grass genin, a tall, loose-limbed disguise with a chakra signature that was just slightly wrong in the way a painting of a window was slightly wrong from a real one. Naruto felt him coming while he was 100 meters out. Not just the chakra, which was immense and cold and smelled like something medical and wrong. The specific quality of attention. The way the forest went quiet around something that was pretending to be less than it was. He was carrying a heaven scroll. He dangled it between 2 fingers as he stepped into the clearing where Team 7 had stopped to eat. Looking for this? We already have one, Sakura said carefully. Of course you do. Orochimaru's smile was the kind that didn't reach his eyes, because his eyes had gone somewhere his smile couldn't follow. He was looking at Naruto. Hello, little Jinchuriki. You've been making interesting rumors in the exam. You should hear what they say about you, Naruto said. He kept eating. Something flickered in Orochimaru's expression, appreciation, almost, for someone who didn't know enough to be afraid. Or appreciation for someone who did know and had made peace with it. Either way. I heard my sound team had a difficult time. They were polite about it, Naruto said. Unlike me, Orochimaru agreed pleasantly. He let the scroll drop, stepped over it, came forward. The killing intent rolled off him like heat, not a technique, not a jutsu, just the accumulated weight of everything he'd done and everything he intended to do, pressing against the air. Sakura stiffened. Sasuke's hands tightened on his kunai. Naruto chewed another bite of rice ball. Orochimaru stopped. The report said your chakra had changed, he said slowly. I expected something interesting. I didn't expect, he tilted his head. What are you? Genin, Naruto said. Konoha. Team 7. Uzumaki Naruto. He held up his ID badge helpfully. Don't play coy. The fruit. His tongue moved in his mouth. The specimen from the archives. What did it do to you? It made me uncomfortable to eat, Naruto said. Worst thing I've ever tasted. Orochimaru's patience, which was a long and terrible thing, chose this moment to reach its edge. He moved, genuinely moved, at a fraction of his actual speed, but a fraction of Orochimaru's speed was still faster than most living things could track. He covered the distance between them in an instant with his hands shaping a seal. He grabbed Naruto's shoulder. Applied the seal. The curse mark activated. Or tried to. It touched Naruto's skin and the rubber of his body conducted it like a live wire conducts electricity, took it in, let it move, and then bounced it back. Not as an intentional technique. The curse mark simply had nowhere to go. The natural body it had been designed to invade and corrupt and claim was not a natural body anymore. It was rubber through, and rubber, fundamentally, did not take impressions. Orochimaru felt it rebound through his hand. He released his grip and stepped back, and it was the first involuntary step Orochimaru had taken in longer than most of Team 7 had been alive. He looked at his own hand. Interesting, he said. His voice had changed. The pleasant performance was gone. What replaced it was something rawer, genuine fascination, the kind a scientist felt when an experiment produced results that broke his model. The chakra conducts through the rubber medium. The mark has no purchase. He looked at Naruto. You've created an entirely new paradigm. Cool, Naruto said. Please leave. I want to study you. I noticed. Leave anyway. Orochimaru looked at him for a long time. Naruto looked back. Not defiantly, not with bravado, just steady, the way a mountain was steady, the way something was steady when it had completely stopped trying to seem bigger than it was and was simply exactly the size it was. Then Orochimaru looked at Sasuke. Sasuke, who had been standing very still with killing intent pressing against him like a wave against a pier, who was white-knuckled on his kunai but hadn't moved, who was watching the snake Sannin with the particular intensity of someone who was filing everything away. "You," Orochimaru said to Sasuke. His voice changed again, warmer, but the warmth of a lit match. "I had plans for you, boy. That potential, the Sharingan, the Uchiha bloodline. Come with me and I'll give you the power to kill your brother." Sasuke's eye twitched. "I know what you are. I'm the only person in this world who can give you what you need." "What I need," Sasuke said quietly, "is for you to take your eyes off my teammate." Orochimaru blinked. Of all the things he'd anticipated, that sentence was not among them. He looked at Sasuke, really looked, not at the power potential, not at the bloodline, but at the 17-year-old boy wearing a 12-year-old's face who had just made a proprietary statement about Uzumaki Naruto. He smiled. Not the cold smile. Something more real, more amused. "Well," he said. "This is unexpected." He left. Not because he couldn't fight them, he absolutely could, but because the calculation had changed in a way he needed to think about. The curse mark's failure alone required analysis. The dynamic between the Uchiha and the Jinchuriki required analysis. Everything here required analysis. He disappeared into the trees. The forest exhaled. Sakura sat down hard on the nearest root. "That was Orochimaru," she said. "That was literally Orochimaru." "Yeah," Naruto said. "He walked away." "Yeah. She looked at Sasuke. "What did you say to him?" Sasuke sheathed his kunai. "Nothing. You told him to take his eyes off Naruto." "I said nothing." Naruto had been watching Sasuke since the moment Orochimaru left. Sasuke wasn't looking at him. Sasuke was very precisely looking at everything except him. "Hey," Naruto said. "What?" "Thanks." A long silence. "Don't thank me," Sasuke said. "It was strategically sound. You're more useful to the team with your mental state intact." "Sure," Naruto said easily. "It wasn't," "Sure," Naruto said again, and grinned, and Sasuke made an extremely controlled sound of frustration and walked to the tree-line to begin his watch shift 3 hours early. Sakura looked between them. "You know what, I'm going to sleep," she said, in the tone of someone removing themselves from a situation on purpose. "Wake me for second watch. I don't want to be conscious for whatever this is." The tower at the center. They reached it on day 4, ahead of most teams, behind only a few, and when they walked through the gate and the proctors logged their scrolls, one of the Chunin on duty looked at their team number, looked up at them, looked down at the mission report he'd been given, and then made a note in the margin that simply read, "Arrived intact, somehow." Inside, waiting, was Kakashi. He'd been given his own proctor's briefing. Naruto could tell by the way his visible eye moved across the three of them, assessing, specifically, before settling on Team 7 as a unit and deciding something. "You ran into Orochimaru," Kakashi said. "Not a question." "He tried to give Sasuke the curse mark," Naruto said. "And? He missed." Kakashi's eye shifted to Sasuke. Sasuke's neck was unmarked. Kakashi made a sound that was almost a laugh. "And the attempt on you? He tried something." Naruto rolled his shoulder where the mark had been applied. There was a slight discoloration there, not the curse mark spreading pattern, just a faint handprint bruise already fading. "Didn't take. He left voluntarily." "Yeah." Kakashi was quiet for a moment. "You realize what that means? He's going to keep watching. He's going to make you his new primary interest," Kakashi said, and his voice was careful in the way someone's voice was careful when they were managing information they didn't fully have yet. "Orochimaru walking away from a target is not, he doesn't do that unless the math changed significantly. Good, Naruto said. Let him watch. He can learn the same thing everyone else is going to learn. Which is? Naruto looked at him. That what I have isn't for taking. The other teams trickled in over the next day. The preliminary matches were set. Naruto stood in the balcony watching the pairings get announced, and the name that came up next to his made most of the remaining genin go quiet, Uzumaki Naruto vs Neji Hyuga. Neji, who had not looked at Naruto since they'd entered the tower, looked at him now. His pale eyes were calm with the particular certainty of someone who had already decided how a story ended. Fate, Neji said, across the space between them, has already determined the outcome of every conflict. You are a failure, Uzumaki. The seal on your stomach marks you as a vessel, not a person. You were born to lose. The room watched Naruto. Naruto looked at Neji for a long moment. At the certainty in him, the grief underneath the certainty, the anger underneath the grief, the whole architectural structure of a person who'd built his worldview around inevitability because the alternative was too painful. Fate's never met me before, Naruto said. Simple. Not even hot about it. Neji's eyes narrowed. Your arrogance, it's not arrogance. Naruto turned away from him, which in its own way was the most devastating thing he could have done. I'll see you in the match. The preliminary match happened the next morning. Neji came out fighting immediately, no speech, no posturing. He'd watched Naruto's chakra since the tower and his Byakugan was processing information faster than most people could think. He saw the rubber body. He saw the chakra conducting through it differently. He filed it, adapted, and came in with a gentle fist sequence targeted not at the tenketsu points but at the rubber structure's stress points, the places where stretched material was most vulnerable. He was brilliant. He was genuinely, technically brilliant. Naruto stretched away from the first sequence and his arm came back around in a hook that had 15 feet of extension behind it. Neji dodged. His Byakugan was tracking the arm's extension limit, calculating the return arc, positioning himself outside it. Smart. Completely correct. Also irrelevant when Naruto pumped chakra into the arm at full compression. He'd been doing this privately for 2 weeks. What happened when rubber met Kurama's chakra at full pressure? What happened when a compressed rubber body, saturated with tailed beast energy, released that compression in a single direction? His fist hit Neji's guard at a speed that the Byakugan had never clocked from something human-shaped. The force was enormous, not because Naruto was supernaturally strong, but because the elastic recoil of compressed rubber multiplied whatever force you put in. Neji flew backward. His guard held. He landed and rolled and came up, and Naruto's other fist was already there, the left arm on the extension catching him on the recovery. Neji dropped to one knee. Got back up. The Byakugan was recalibrating, desperately, tracking the new parameters. You're fighting gravity, Neji said. He was breathing harder. And elasticity. That combination is, annoying. Naruto offered. Unprecedented. Neji moved again, faster, abandoning the gentle fist's precision for sheer speed, trying to get inside the extension range where the rubber couldn't help. He was right, up close, Naruto couldn't extend and the rebound physics didn't work. He had to fight like a normal person. So Naruto fought like a normal person. Shadow clone jutsu filled the arena with 50 copies of him. The clones were rubber too, whatever nature the fruit had given him, the chakra constructs inherited it. Neji hit the first clone and it bounced. He hit the second and it stretched. The third wrapped around his guard arm when he struck it, briefly, just long enough to throw his angle off. Neji escaped, turned, found the real Naruto standing 5 feet away. How? Neji said. The Byakugan sees chakra. I should be able to, the clones have the same chakra as me, Naruto said. Not copies. Because the Nika power's in the chakra, and my chakra's all the same chakra. He shrugged. You can't pick me out. Sorry. Niji was genuinely staggered by this. Not emotionally, intellectually. The Byakugan's greatest advantage neutralized not by deception but by a biological reality he hadn't accounted for. He attacked again, and it was magnificent, the Hyuga style adapted in real time, reading the rubber physics, compensating, genuinely impressive technical genius working at its absolute limit. But Naruto's limit was further. He didn't end it cleanly. He didn't humiliate Niji, that wasn't the point. He waited until Niji's next charge, set his feet, pumped the left arm to full elasticity, and on the exhale let it release toward the center of Niji's momentum. The force met his forward movement and compounded it, redirected it downward, and Niji hit the floor of the arena hard enough to bounce. He didn't get back up. He was conscious, his eyes were open, the Byakugan still active, burning with the effort, but the structural damage was too much. Silence in the observation deck. Then one person started clapping. Just one, slow, deliberate. Naruto looked up and found Sasuke leaning on the railing with his arms crossed, applauding once, twice, 3 times, with the expression of someone who had just watched something they needed to recalibrate their benchmark against. Sakura had her hands over her mouth. Niji, from the floor, looked at Naruto. "How?" he said again. "Just that." Naruto crouched beside him. "You were wrong about fate," he said, quietly, so just Niji could hear. "You're brilliant. You're one of the best fighters I've ever seen. And you lost. Those 2 facts can both be true. You don't need fate to explain it. You just need to decide what you do next." He stood. "That part's actually up to you." He walked off the arena floor. Behind him, Niji lay in the crater-shaped impression in the stone, staring at the ceiling, and the certainty in his eyes, the cold, architectural certainty that had held everything up, began, slowly, to crack. That evening, Kakashi found Naruto on the training ground outside the tower, practicing something. Not fighting. Not running through jutsu. He was sitting cross-legged in the dirt with his hand pressed flat against the ground, eyes closed, not moving. Kakashi watched from the tree line for a few minutes before approaching. "What are you doing?" Kakashi asked. "Listening," Naruto said. "To what?" "Everything." He opened his eyes. "Kurama's been telling me about the drums. The rhythm underneath things. I'm trying to hear it when I'm not in a fight. Can you?" Naruto lifted his hand from the ground. "Sometimes. It's like, you know how when you're in the middle of something really alive, really real, it feels different. The air feels different." "Battle clarity," Kakashi said. "Yes. It's like that, but it's always there. It's just quiet most of the time." He looked at his hand. "When I fought Niji today and the rubber was working, I could hear it clearly. Like it gets louder when I'm fully myself." Kakashi sat down across from him. This was unusual. Kakashi did not usually sit on the ground in dirt. He sat, and was quiet for a moment, and then said, "The Hokage wants a report after the exams. On your condition." "I know. The council has been making inquiries." "I know that too." "Danzo, I know about Danzo," Naruto said. His voice didn't change, which was somehow more pointed than if it had. "He had someone watching me during the forest exam. ANBU, but wrong, the chakra signature was slightly off, like someone trained to mask it but not to mask it from something like me." He looked at Kakashi. "He wants to understand what I am." Kakashi was quiet for a moment. "And what do you think he'll do when he understands?" Naruto thought about Danzo, about what he knew of him, which was fragments and second-hand stories and the shape of a man in the gaps of things. A man who had watched the village for 40 years, who had built power the way you built a dam, slowly, methodically, by controlling what flowed where. "He'll try to manage it," Naruto said. "And then when that doesn't work, he'll try to eliminate it. And that's going to be a very educational experience for him," Naruto said. Kakashi's eye curved again, that almost smile. He stood, brushed the dirt off. Get some sleep, Naruto. Kakashi-sensei. The older man paused. The curse mark. It didn't take because I'm rubber. But Sasuke doesn't have the mark, Kakashi said. I know. But Orochimaru isn't done. He came here for Sasuke specifically. I know. So watch him, Naruto said. Not a request. Not a suggestion. Something more like the quiet statement of someone who decided certain things were unacceptable and was informing the universe of this decision. Because if Orochimaru touches him again, I'm going to have to be considerably less polite about it. Kakashi looked at him for a moment. Considerably. Yeah. A pause. Understood, Kakashi said, and left. Naruto turned back to the ground. Put his hand flat against it. Closed his eyes. Underneath the dirt, underneath the rock, deep in the bones of the earth, Tum. 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 He smiled. Chapter 3, King's Declaration. The sky fell at noon. Not metaphorically. The actual sky, the actual blue Konoha sky with its clouds and its light, came apart in pieces as Pain's Deva path descended from above with the almighty push building in his hands, and the village that Naruto had grown up in, that had ignored him and feared him and occasionally fed him and sometimes smiled at him in the market, detonated outward from its center like a flower made of stone and grief. Naruto was already moving when it happened. He'd felt the chakra build up from across the village, that specific pressure, enormous and cold and structured, like someone had taken grief and compressed it into a weapon. He'd been at Training Ground 7 when it started, running drills alone because Kakashi was debriefing with the Hokage and Sasuke was doing whatever Sasuke did when left to his own devices, which usually involved brooding at a training post until the training post developed anxiety. The first shockwave hit him at full force and he rode it. Didn't brace, didn't fight it, let it take him and moved with it, rubber body absorbing and redirecting, and he landed on a rooftop 3 blocks from the crater's edge looking out over what used to be the village center. It was a hole. A perfect, terrible hole in the world, ringed by shattered buildings, full of dust and the sounds of people. The Hokage Tower was gone. A third of the residential district was rubble. And standing at the crater's edge, 6 bodies arranged around him like anchors to the world, was a man with gray hair and flower-petal eyes who looked at the devastation he'd made with the expression of someone who had thought about this moment for a very long time. Pain. Nagato's body, Yahiko's body, looked up and found Naruto on the rooftop. Across the crater, through the dust, their eyes met. Uzumaki Naruto, Pain said. His voice carried without effort, the way very certain things carried. I was told you'd grown into something unusual. You destroyed my village, Naruto said. I demonstrated a point. He stepped forward, and the bodies around him moved in concert, 6 paths finding their positions with the mechanical precision of a weapon being loaded. The world requires pain to understand peace. Konoha needed to understand, I know your philosophy, Naruto said. He dropped from the rooftop. Landed in the rubble below. Walked forward. The animal path released a summoning, a massive rhino, enormous and fast, charging across the crater floor directly at him. Naruto set his feet, pulled his arm back, compressed the rubber through his shoulder and elbow and wrist, and on the exhale released the punch. His fist hit the rhino in the face. The rhino stopped. Completely. Its momentum, several tons of charging animal at full speed, met the elastic recoil of a punch that had compressed that force and given it back with interest, and the rhino sat down in the rubble like someone had simply turned off the switch that made it go, and then fell over sideways. The dust settled around it. Pain watched. Your information was accurate, the human path said, to no one. Receiving. Sharing data between the bodies the way the Rinnegan allowed. I know what you are, Naruto said, still walking forward. 6 bodies, 1 consciousness. The Rinnegan. You're Nagato. He stopped about 30 feet from the nearest path. You're from the rain. You were Jiraiya-sensei's student. Something moved through the Deva Path's expression. The first crack in the certainty. You were trained by Jiraiya. Yeah. Naruto's voice didn't perform grief. He just carried it. He died because of you. Because of the world you're building. He looked at the crater around them. This is what your peace looks like. This is the cost of peace, Pain said. You are too young to understand, you keep saying that. Naruto's voice picked up an edge. Not anger exactly. Something more like impatience with a specific kind of condescension. Everyone who wants to control the world starts by telling the people they're controlling that they're too young or too weak or too simple to understand. He spread his hands at the rubble. Jiraiya understood. He believed in something different. And you killed him. He refused to stop interfering. He believed in people, Naruto said. That's the thing you can't forgive, isn't it? He saw the same broken world you did and he chose to believe it could be better without anyone having to hold a weapon over it. He paused. You chose the weapon. Belief changes nothing, Pain said. Pain changes everything. The world only learns through suffering, the world learns through freedom, Naruto said. He pressed his hand to his chest. From someone being free enough to show it the way. The drums started in his sternum. Not loudly. Not yet. But the Deva Path felt it, something in the environment responded to the sound, the way tuning forks responded to each other. The Rinnegan dilated. What is that? Pain said. Honestly? Naruto looked down at his own hand on his chest. I'm still figuring it out. He looked back up. But I know what it wants. It wants this, he gestured at the crater, to not be what the world is. The Preta Path moved, absorption ability activated, rushing forward to grab Naruto's chakra directly. It was the correct tactical choice. Take the jutsu out of the equation. Get hands on the body. It got hands on the body. The Preta Path's ability worked by absorbing chakra through direct contact, drawing it out and nullifying it. What it had never been designed for was a body where the chakra was threaded through every molecule of a rubber medium that simply did not release what was in it. The absorption met the rubber structure and the chakra conducted in all directions simultaneously without leaving, like trying to drain water from a sealed container by touching the outside. The Preta Path looked confused, which was not an expression those blank eyes were built for. Naruto grabbed its wrist. Compressed the grip. The Preta Path's wrist bones made a sound, and the body dropped, and Naruto let go and stepped forward again. Pain sent all 5 remaining paths at him simultaneously. What followed was not a clean fight. It was enormous and loud and painful in places. The Deva Path's repulsion sent Naruto through a wall and he came back through the hole he'd made. The Naraka Path's judgment technique grabbed at him and he stretched away from it. The hell creature the Naraka Path summoned bit down on his arm and he let it, because rubber didn't tear, and then pulled his arm back and the creature came with it briefly before releasing, confused. The Animal Path summoned a massive centipede. Naruto punched it. The centipede left. The Animal Path summoned something larger. Naruto punched that too. The Deva Path pulled back and built the next almighty push. Naruto felt it gathering. That cold, compressed grief turned force, enormous, absolute, the technique that had flattened the village. He had about 4 seconds. He set his feet. He pushed chakra, all of it, Ninetales chakra and the Nika resonance together, into his torso, saturating the rubber medium, filling every flexible cell with pressure until his skin glowed faintly red gold, and then he leaned into it. The almighty push hit him like the end of the world. He moved. Backward, through 2 walls, through a building that hadn't finished collapsing, across 20 meters of rubble, and came to rest against the far side of the crater. His feet left 2 long gouges in the stone where he tried to slow himself. He stood up. Shook his head. Looked down at himself. His jacket was shredded. His skin was completely unbroken. The dust was still settling. Pain stared at him from across the crater. That should have killed you, the Deva Path said. Yeah, Naruto agreed, straightening his headband. It really should have. He walked back across the crater floor. Slowly. Not threatening, not performing, just walking, the way you walked when you decided where you were going and the only variable was how long it took. The Deva Path's eyes tracked him, and behind those eyes, Naruto could feel Nagato watching, the real person behind the puppet, the grief-shaped man hiding in his war machine. You're going to keep coming, Pain said. Until one of us stops or changes their mind, Naruto said. You cannot defeat the Rinnegan. I've been defeating things that should be unbeatable my whole life. At this point it's sort of a habit. This is not persistence, Pain said, and something shifted in his voice, toward Nagato, away from the performance of Pain. You're not refusing to give up. You're refusing to accept that the world works the way it does. Yeah, Naruto said. That's exactly right. The Deva Path was silent. Nagato, Naruto said. He stopped walking. I know you're in there. I know what you lost. Yahiko. The people you couldn't protect. The things Jiraiya taught you that the world kept proving wrong. He paused. I know what it feels like to be taught that people are worth believing in and then watch the world hurt them anyway. Nothing. But you're using his face, Naruto said quietly. You're using Yahiko's face to do things Yahiko would have hated. And I think you know that. I think that's the part of you that's the most broken. The Deva Path's hand came up. Gravity compressed around it. Don't presume to understand, I'm not presuming, Naruto said. I'm telling you what I see. A person who loved someone and watched the world break that person and decided the only way to stop being broken was to break the world first. The technique built. The air distorted. Naruto breathed in. The drums hit their full volume. Later, the ANBU who were watching from the crater's edge and writing mission reports would describe what happened next as a visible pressure change followed by an Aurora-class chakra event, color consistent with late-stage Six-Tails manifestation but structurally distinct. What they meant was, the air turned gold and red, and the sound that came out of Naruto's chest was not a jutsu and not a ki and not a technique, it was a frequency, deep and resonant and ancient, and every person in the crater felt it in their bones. The Deva Path's technique fractured. Not cancelled, fractured. The compressed gravity came apart at its structural seams, like something that had been woven with the assumption that the world operated by certain rules and had just discovered a piece of the world that predated those rules. Pain stared. What, he said. The drums, Naruto said. His voice had a harmonic in it now, something underneath the regular frequency, a second voice that was very old and very large and very certain. Kurama says they're older than the shinobi world. Older than chakra as a concept. Something that was in the world before it learned to be afraid. He walked the last 10 feet to the Deva Path and stopped directly in front of it. I'm not going to kill you, Naruto said. I could. I don't want to. He looked at Yahiko's face wearing Nagato's grief. I want you to choose something different. You are a child. Jiraiya thought so too, Naruto said. Right up until he didn't. The silence after was strange. The village was rubble. People were emerging from shelters, from the ones that had survived, from the places where ANBU and Jonin had managed to get civilians during the attack. The sounds of the aftermath, crying, calling, the crunch of rescue teams moving through stone, filled the air. Pain had withdrawn. Not defeated in any final sense, the paths had retreated to positions unknown, Nagato himself still alive somewhere outside the village. Not a victory. A pause. A breath. Naruto stood in the crater in his shredded jacket. Tsunade arrived at a run from the field hospital she'd set up at the village's northern edge, Shizun 3 steps behind her, and when she saw the crater and Naruto standing in the middle of it she stopped and did a full slow survey of the situation before speaking. Report, she said. Pain retreated, Naruto said. 6 paths, all of them are down or withdrawn. The real body is somewhere outside the village. I don't know where yet. Tsunade looked at the various things that had been punched through walls and the rhino sitting unconscious in the rubble. Did you do all of this? Most of it. You're a genin. Technically. Naruto. Her voice carried the full weight of a Hokage who'd watched too many young people get hurt making choices above their rank. You should have waited there was no time to wait, he said. And I was fine. You went up against pain alone. I'm hard to hurt, he said simply, and it was so matter-of-fact, so completely without bravado, that it was somehow more concerning than if he'd been proud about it. Tsunade-sama. People need help. The hospital district took damage on the eastern side and there are people in the rubble. Can we handle that first? She looked at him for another moment, processing approximately 7 different responses, and landed on the one that mattered. Yes, she said. We can. The rebuilding started the same day. Konoha moved the way it moved in a crisis, organized, fast, the years of ninja training turning ordinary people into efficient machines for doing what needed to be done. Naruto was everywhere. Not in the showy way, not performing heroism, he was just continuously useful in ways that his body made possible. His arms reached further into rubble than anyone else's. He could support weight that should have required 3 people. He cleared a passage in the hospital district in an hour that would have taken a rescue team a day. Sasuke found him in the late afternoon, up to his elbows in a collapsed wall, pulling sections of it aside like he was sorting laundry. His Sharingan was active and he was watching Naruto work with the specific quality of attention he gave things he was genuinely trying to understand. You're not tired, Sasuke said. Not really, Naruto said. He pulled another chunk of wall free. Passed it back to the civilian workers behind him. You've been doing this for 4 hours. Yeah. Normal people get tired. I know. Another section of wall. There was a sound from inside, shallow breathing. Naruto moved faster, carefully, hands precise. Sasuke moved to the other side of the wall without being asked. Started pulling from his angle. They worked without speaking for several minutes until the gap was wide enough, and the medic team that had been waiting got in and extracted the family they found inside, a woman, 2 children, a man with a broken arm, and they came out blinking in the late afternoon light and the woman grabbed Naruto's sleeve and said something he couldn't catch over the noise and he just nodded and she let go and they were gone with the medics. Sasuke was watching him. What? Naruto said. Nothing. Sasuke looked away. You should eat. I ate an hour ago. You burned through it an hour ago. This was true. Naruto's metabolism had always been high, the Nine-Tails burning through everything he put in constantly. The Nika power had made it worse. He put a hand in his jacket pocket, found a rice ball he'd forgotten was there, and ate it in 3 bites. Pain talked about Jiraiya-sensei, Naruto said. Sasuke was quiet. He didn't seem, I thought he'd be more monstrous, Naruto continued. But he just seemed sad. Like someone who was sad for so long it turned into a system. He paused. That's almost worse. Don't feel sorry for him, Sasuke said. He destroyed the village. I can feel sorry for someone and still not let them do it again, Naruto said. Those aren't contradictions. He looked at Sasuke. The way you feel about Itachi. Sasuke's jaw tightened. He said nothing. Sorry, Naruto said. I know you don't want to talk about, no. Sasuke's voice was controlled to the point of being almost toneless. You're right. They're not contradictions. A pause. I hate that you're right. I know. Sasuke almost smiled. Not quite. The Hokage is convening an emergency meeting. Tonight. Every available jonin and above. He paused. She asked me to find you. What's the topic? You. Sasuke looked at him directly. What to do about you? The meeting was in the remnants of the administrative hall, a section of which had survived intact, and it was full. Every jonin in the village, the senior council members, 2 ANBU captains, Tsunade at the front with Shizune beside her and a mission log that had been updated in real time. Naruto came in and found a seat in the middle of the room, which was exactly the wrong place to sit if you wanted to be unobtrusive, but Naruto had spent 12 years being unobtrusive and had found it unsatisfying. He sat. Everyone looked at him. He looked back. Thank you all for coming, Tsunade began, and gave a precise summary of the day's events, the attack, the damage assessment, the casualties, the status of Pain's paths. She was clinical and thorough, and when she reached the point about the crater engagement she said, Naruto Uzumaki engaged all 6 paths of Pain in direct combat, neutralized 5 of them, and appears to have been the primary reason the engagement did not result in greater casualties. He engaged without authorization, someone said from the left side of the room. An older jonin. The kind of older jonin who'd made a career out of the word authorization. He engaged because the alternative was letting it continue, Tsunade said flatly. He's a genin. He should have done exactly what he did, Kakashi said from the back of the room. His voice was mild. He was leaning against the wall with his book out, which was either evidence of great calm or deliberate provocation, probably both. The results speak. The room made various sounds that represented various positions on this statement. Then, from the side of the room that Naruto had been specifically not looking at, a voice that was like cold water in a stone corridor said, the results are not the question. Danzo. He was standing with 3 of his root operatives behind him, and he looked exactly like what he was, a man who'd spent decades being the part of the village that the village didn't look at directly. The question, he said, is what Uzumaki represents. What he has become. And whether the village's current relationship with him is appropriate given that. Naruto looked at Danzo. Danzo looked at Naruto. Appropriate, Naruto said. You have been modified, Danzo said, by an unknown external element consumed without authorization, resulting in capabilities that are not understood, not catalogued, and not controlled. You are a Jinchuriki, already the village's most significant contained risk factor, who has now added a second layer of anomalous ability to an already unstable profile. His voice was reasonable. Almost kind. This is not about your value to the village, Naruto. This is about protocol. Protocol, Naruto said. Study. Documentation. Understanding what you've become, so that the village can appropriately account for it. And if I don't want to be studied? Want doesn't come into it, Danzo said. You are Konoha's resource. The village invested in your upbringing, your training, the village ignored me for 12 years, Naruto said. Still calm. Still completely level. The village looked the other way when I went hungry. When I couldn't get a room in 3 different inns because of what was sealed inside me. When kids at the academy made my desk face the wall. He looked at Danzo steadily. The village didn't invest in me. I invested in myself. And what I am now is mine. The room was quiet. You are the Nine-Tails vessel, I am Naruto Uzumaki, he said. The harmonic hit the air briefly, not even a full expression of the drums, just a touch, just a frequency that pressed against every person in the room and made the air feel briefly, undeniably alive. That's the whole sentence. Danzo's expression didn't change, but something behind it did. Lord Hokage, Naruto said, turning to Tsunade, I'll cooperate with any reasonable assessment of what I can do and what I know. I'll share information about the fruit and what Kurama knows about it. I'll work with the medical team. He kept his eyes on her, not on Danzo. But I'm not property. I'm not going to let anyone treat me like a tool to be inventoried. Those are my terms. Tsunade looked at him for a long moment. Something in her face was doing the same thing Irika's face had done when he tied the headband on, managing the weight of something that was too big and too real for a formal setting. "Accepted," she said. Danzo's knuckles, on the arm of his chair, went white. And then relaxed. "As the Hokage wishes," he said, smooth as river stone, which was more alarming than any protest would have been. The village rebuilt. It took weeks, and Naruto was in it every day, not because anyone asked him to be but because the alternative was watching people suffer in ways he could reduce, and that was not something his body would let him sit still for. He pulled stone, shored up damaged structures with his arms acting as temporary supports, worked alongside civilian and ninja alike with exactly no distinction between them. People noticed. Not in the way they'd noticed him before, the nervous noticing, the stay-away noticing, the 11-year-old who caused property damage and they didn't know where to put him. This was different. This was the noticing of people who'd been in a crisis and seen someone show up, repeatedly, without asking for recognition, and done the work. The ramen stand reopened on day 3. Tucci and Ayam were fine, they'd been in the shelter with half their street. When Naruto came by they gave him 4 bowls for free and Ayam cried a little and called him stupid for fighting pain alone, which was the most affectionate thing anyone had said to him all week. On day 10, a civilian woman whose house he'd helped clear on the first day found him in the market and pressed a hand-knitted orange scarf into his arms without explanation and walked away before he could say anything. He wore it for a week. The other thing that happened during the rebuilding was Sakura. Sakura, who'd been running the field hospital's tertiary station with Tsunade from the day of the attack, who'd been awake for 3 days straight in the initial aftermath and who Naruto checked on every morning and evening because she wouldn't check on herself. On the 14th day she found him sitting on a pile of cleared rubble eating dinner and sat down beside him without asking and put her head on his shoulder and went to sleep immediately, which was the most trust she'd ever expressed about anything. He sat still for 2 hours and let her sleep. When she woke up she straightened and looked at him and said, "You could have just held the building up." He blinked. "What?" "Pain's first push. The buildings at the crater's edge. You could have held them up. Braced them. Slowed the collapse. I was across the village. I know. I'm just," she stopped. Rubbed her face. "I lost 2 patients that day. One of them because of structural collapse. I've been thinking about it." He looked at her. "That's not your fault. I know. I'm also allowed to grieve it." "Yeah," he said. "You are." She straightened. Pulled her hair back. Became Sakura again, the assembled version. "What are you going to do about Nagato?" "Talk to him," Naruto said. "He's surrounded by whatever infrastructure pain operates through. Getting to him, I'll find a way in." He looked at the half-rebuilt skyline. "I need to find him before Danzo does. Danzo wants him eliminated. Nagato is a person, not a target." He paused. "And he was Jiraiya-sensei's student. That means something." Sakura was quiet for a moment. "You know people think you're reckless." "I know. You're not, though. You've thought about all of this." "Yeah. It just looks reckless because you're not afraid." She looked at him sideways. "Most people look thoughtful when they're scared. You look thoughtful when you're not." He thought about that. "Is that a compliment?" "It's an observation," she said. "Take it however it fits." She stood, brushed the dust off her pants. "I'm going back to the hospital. Come by tonight. Tsunade wants to talk to you about something." "What something?" Sakura's expression did a complicated thing. "She's going to suggest something big. I think you're going to like it." She paused. "I also think it's going to cause a lot of problems." "Those are basically the same category for me," Naruto said. "I know," she said. "That's what worries me." But she was almost smiling when she said it. Tsunade's office was temporary, a commandeered room in the administrative wing that had survived, with borrowed furniture and seals on the windows that Naruto could feel but that wouldn't slow him down meaningfully. She was behind the desk when he arrived, and beside her was someone he hadn't expected. Killer B. The Raikage brother, Eight-Tails Jinchuriki, standing in the Hokage's temporary office with his swords angled in ways that offended standard sword geometry, looking at Naruto with the particular expression of someone who was trying to make a rhyme about what they were seeing. "You're the Leaf Kid with the wild chakra," B said. "I felt it from the border." Eight-Tails was going, "Yo, what is that, B?" Tsunade said. Right, lady in charge, I respect it, Naruto." Tsunade looked at him. "Killer B is here on an unofficial visit. His brother doesn't know he's here, and I'd like it to stay that way for now." She took a breath. After the attack, the other villages sent response inquiries. Standard protocol. But 3 of them added a specific question to their official messages. "About me," Naruto said. "About what you are." She folded her hands on the desk. "The chakra event during your engagement with pain was visible to Sensonin across 3 countries. The frequency, the drums, was logged by every sensor array in the region as something without precedent." She looked at him steadily. "The other villages are afraid." "Good," Naruto said. Tsunade blinked. "Good. Not because I want them afraid," he said. "Because fear means they're taking it seriously. They'll come to the table." He looked at B. "That's why he's here, right? The cloud wants to talk." B pointed at him. "This kid," he said to Tsunade. "This kid gets it." "The 5 Kage summit is being organized," Tsunade said slowly. "Officially around Madara, Tobi and Akatsuki's operations have escalated. The summit has been in discussion for months." She paused. "After today, it is going to have an unofficial second agenda. Me. You." She looked at him. "Naruto. The conversation at that summit is going to involve decisions that affect your future directly. What you are. What the shinobi world does with what you are." A pause. "I want you there." "As what?" he asked. "As yourself," she said. "Unranked. No designation. Just, present." She looked slightly pained at her own suggestion, like she could already see the paperwork nightmare. "Danzo will oppose it. The protocol is, I'll be there," Naruto said. "You'll need, I'll be there," he said again, calmly. "You don't need to convince me, Tsunade-sama. I know that room is going to make decisions about my life. I'm not going to let them do that without me in it." Killer B pumped his fist. "That's the Jinchuriki energy right there. Eight-Tails says respect." Tsunade looked at both of them. She looked like a woman who'd agreed to something she fully understood and was making peace with the consequences. "There will be no official invitation. You'll attend as part of my staff." "Whatever works," Naruto said. "And Naruto." He stopped at the door. "Whatever you decide to say in that room, whatever you do, she stopped. Started again." Something moved across her face that was older than this crisis, older than the village as it currently stood. "Jiraiya believed in you," she said. "He told me, specifically, that you were the answer to something the world had been asking for a very long time." She looked at the desk. "Don't let me down." He thought about Jiraiya. About the old man's laugh and his terrible books and the way he'd taught jutsu like it was both life and death and somehow also the funniest thing he'd ever seen. About the reports of what he'd done to get the information about pain. About what it cost him. "I won't," Naruto said. He meant it in a way that was bigger than the room. That night he sat on the roof of the temporary building and pressed his hand to the boards and listened. The village was quieter than usual, the night shift workers still clearing rubble, the distant sounds of reconstruction, the particular deep quiet of a place that had been shaken and was reassembling itself. Kurama was awake. The fox didn't sleep the way Naruto slept, he maintained a kind of low-grade consciousness even at rest, old instincts from centuries of being the thing that needed to be alert. "The summit," Kurama said. Yeah. They will try to reduce you to a manageable concept. I know. And if they cannot? Then they'll know that too, Naruto said. And they'll have to decide what to do with what they know. You realize what you are becoming. It was not quite a question. Naruto looked at the carved faces on the Hokage monument, 4 of them looking out over the village in the dark. 4 Hokage. 4 people who'd taken the weight of the village and carried it on the terms the village defined. He thought about what he'd said to Danzo. I am Naruto Uzumaki. That's the whole sentence. Yeah, he said to Kurama. I think I do. The drums will be louder there, the fox said. In that room, with that many strong people in one place, the resonance will be significant. Is that a warning? It is an observation. A pause that felt like a very old thing choosing its words carefully. The last time something like you existed in the world was different afterward. Another pause. I was there. I remember the before. Something in Kurama's presence shifted, not toward Naruto's chest and the bars, but alongside him, in parallel, the way it had been since the archive and the red fruit and the worst taste he'd ever experienced. The before was smaller. Less free. The drums came and things that were locked, opened, Naruto said. Yes, Kurama said. The construction sounds carried on through the night. The village breathing, rebuilding, insisting on itself. Somewhere in the dark, Nagato was still out there, in his cave with his grief and his machine, waiting for whatever came next. Somewhere further, the 5 Kage were arranging chairs. And somewhere in Naruto's chest, steady and warm and patient as something that had been waiting long before he was born, Tum. 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 He pressed his palm flat against the roof boards and felt the whole village vibrate back. Okay, he said. To the drums. To Kurama. To Jiraiya-sensei's memory and the village below and the summit ahead and everything the world was about to learn about what happened when you tried to put a ceiling on someone who was fundamentally, constitutionally, irreversibly free. Okay. Let's go. Chapter 4, The world's response. The land of iron was cold in a way that had opinions about it. Not the pleasant cold of a Konoha winter morning, the kind that made ramen steam more dramatically and gave you an excuse to stay inside. This was the cold of a country that had decided weather was a form of governance, flat, gray, absolute, the kind that got into your joints and your mood and stayed there. Snow covered everything from the mountain passes to the summit building itself, a stone structure that had been hosting important meetings for long enough that the walls had absorbed several centuries of political tension and were radiating it back. Naruto walked in wearing his normal clothes. Not because he didn't own anything warmer. Sakura had in fact pressed a proper coat on him at the village gate and he'd thanked her and put it in his pack and then not put it on, partly because the cold genuinely didn't bother him much anymore, the rubber body ran warm, Kurama ran warmer, and partly because the coat was normal and he'd decided sometime between the crater and the border crossing that normal was not the register he was arriving in. He wore his usual jacket, orange and battered, headband on his forehead. Behind him, Tsunade's official delegation moved with the dignified posture of people who were extremely aware that the other delegations were watching from the summit building's upper windows. You look like you dressed in the dark, Kakashi said, coming up beside him. I dressed very deliberately, Naruto said. That's what I'm worried about. The iron samurai at the gate were impressive, still, armored, the Kage-level quiet of warriors who'd refined a single art to its extreme conclusion. They looked at the Leaf delegation. They looked at Naruto. One of them very slightly adjusted his grip on his sword. Naruto smiled at him. The samurai did not smile back, but something in his stance recalibrated, the way things recalibrated when they just processed information that changed their risk assessment. Inside, the building was all stone corridors and lamplight and the echoing footsteps of 5 delegations trying not to sound like they were listening to each other. The main chamber was set up with 5 tables in a rough circle, 1 per Kage, and Naruto could already feel the chakra signatures from the corridor, Tsunade, familiar. Gaara from the sand, which he knew and had shaped into something that felt like recognition whenever they were near each other. Two others that were powerful in the distinct, polished way of people who'd reached the top of a system and stayed there. And one that was wrong. Not weak. Wrong. Like a light source that cast shadows in directions that didn't match. Danzo. Naruto stopped walking. Kakashi stopped a half-step behind him. He was elected in the chaos after Pain's attack, Kakashi said quietly. Tsunade was incapacitated during the final stages of the rebuilding. The council, I know, Naruto said. He'd known for 2 weeks. He'd been processing it for 2 weeks, turning it over, looking at it from different angles, deciding what it meant and what he was going to do about it. He's wearing the Hokage's hat. Temporarily. He's going to try to speak for Konoha. He's going to try to speak for you, Kakashi said. Specifically. His pre-summit communications with the other villages flagged your existence as, he paused, finding the diplomatic word, a shared concern. Naruto looked at the door to the main chamber. Looked at his hand. Stretched his fingers once, let them come back. Okay, he said. He walked through the door. The room went quiet in stages. The Raikage, massive and furious even at rest, a man whose presence in a room was a physical event, looked up first. Then Gaara, who tracked Naruto with sand-colored eyes that had known something about carrying a monster inside you since before they were old enough to understand it. The Mizukage, a woman with teal hair and an expression that managed to be simultaneously warm and absolutely dangerous, tilted her head. The Tsuchikage, old and small and containing the compressed energy of someone who'd survived long enough to become the most dangerous kind of threat, the patient kind, didn't look up immediately, which was itself a choice. Danzo, seated at Konoha's table with his route escort arranged behind him, looked at Naruto and said nothing. His one visible eye was calculating, which was the only expression it knew. Naruto found a chair against the wall, not at any delegation's table, not behind Tsunade, not performing staff. Just a chair. He sat in it and put his feet on the floor and looked at the room, and the room looked back. Mifune, the Iron General hosting the summit, cleared his throat. Now that all parties are, what is he doing here, the Raikage said. Not quietly. He's with my delegation, Tsunade said. He's a genin. Technically, Tsunade agreed. There is no technically. He is either, he's the reason Pain didn't turn Konoha into a graveyard, Tsunade said. Which I think earns him a chair. The Raikage's jaw worked. He was a man whose communication style was volume and forward momentum, and being countered with facts was a form of obstruction he found personally offensive. He looked at Naruto directly. You're the one with the fruit ability. Yeah, Naruto said. My sensornin logged your chakra event from 2 countries away. Sorry about that. Don't apologize. It woke my brother up from a dead sleep and he wouldn't stop rapping about it for 3 days. Something moved in the Raikage's expression, not quite amusement, more like someone suppressing amusement as a professional obligation. B said you have good energy. Killer B's great, Naruto said. His rhymes are very, don't, the Raikage said. Don't encourage him. Mifune tried again. The purpose of this summit is partially about him, said the Tsuchikage, without looking up. His voice was dry as old paper. Let's not pretend otherwise. The official agenda has Akatsuki and Madara at the top. But every message my village received in the past month has mentioned Uzumaki Naruto in the same breath as the word unprecedented, and I would like to understand what that means before we discuss anything else. He looked up. Small eyes, deep, the kind that had seen 100 things the world had tried to convince him were impossible. So, he said to Naruto. What are you? The room waited. Naruto thought about all the ways he could answer that. All the diplomatic, measured, careful ways. All the ways that would make the room comfortable, that would fit into a category they could file and manage. Pirate King of Konoha, he said. The room produced several kinds of silence simultaneously. I'm sorry, the Mizukage said. Did you say, it's what I'm calling it, Naruto said. In the shinobi world, being Hokage means being the strongest, the village's sword and shield, the embodiment of a place. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be the strongest for a place. He looked around the room. I want to be the freest. And I want the people around me to be free. And I want that to spread until the idea that a person is a weapon, a resource, a vessel, a contained risk factor, his eyes moved briefly to Danzo, becomes the kind of idea that everyone looks back on and can't believe anyone ever had. Silence. That's what the drums are, he continued. What the fruit did to me. It didn't make me stronger in the way you measure strength in this room. It made me undeniable. He said it without ego, the way you stated a physical law. And I'm sitting in this room, not at any table, because I'm not here as Konoha's representative or anyone's representative. I'm here as myself. He looked at Danzo. And I'm here so that certain conversations don't happen about me without me. Danzo's hand moved on the table. Lord Tsuchikage asked what you are, he said. The boy has given you poetry. Allow me to provide the operational answer. He looked at the room. Uzumaki Naruto is the nine-tails Jinchuriki, a containment vessel for one of the nine-tailed beasts, who additionally consumed an unclassified biological agent approximately 8 months ago that resulted in anomalous physical modifications. He is 13 years old, holds a genin rank, and operates without oversight or sanction. He is Konoha's asset and Konoha's responsibility. The appropriate course of action, he just told you he's not your asset, Gaara said. Every head turned to the Kazekage. Gaara sat at his table with the particular stillness that was his version of the same thing Naruto had, not calm exactly, but presence, the quality of a person who had been through something that reorganized their understanding of what mattered. His sand shifted fractionally around the base of his chair. I know what it is to be called a village's weapon, Gaara said. I know what it is to be told that your existence belongs to a system that decided what you were before you could decide for yourself. He looked at Danzo with the specific quality of attention that the formerly violent gave to threats they'd learned to recognize. Uzumaki Naruto came to the Chunin exams and faced me when most jonin would have run. He talked to me like I was a person. A pause. This is the first time anyone else has been surprised by that. The room absorbed this. The Kazekage makes an interesting point, the Mizukage said. She had her chin resting on one hand, watching the room with the expression of someone who was genuinely enjoying this. The sand and the leaf have had a complicated history, but if Gaara of the Sand is vouching for someone's character, I'm not here for character vouches, Danzo said. His voice stayed smooth. I'm here for security policy. The 5 great nations face an existential threat from Akatsuki and from Madara Uchiha's Eye of the Moon plan. This is not the time to what? Naruto said. Danzo looked at him. To be free. Naruto said. You were going to say it's not the time for this conversation. What you mean is it's not convenient for you. He stood up from his chair. Not aggressively, just standing, because what he wanted to say needed him on his feet. Danzo. You're wearing the Hokage's hat and you didn't earn it. Everyone in this room knows that, and some of them will use it, and that's between you and Tsunade-sama to sort out. He looked at the room. But I need to say something to all of you, and I need you to hear it as what it is, not a genin speech, not a Jinchuriki's complaint. Just the truth. He waited. Nobody told him to stop. The Eye of the Moon plan, he said. Madara wants to cast an infinite dream over the world. A genjutsu so complete that everyone inside it lives in a perfect illusion. No pain, no conflict, no loss. He paused. It sounds like peace. Nagato's version of peace sounded like peace too. He looked at Pain's philosophy made physical in the room's tension. Every plan that wants to solve the world's problems by taking away people's ability to choose, it always sounds like peace from the outside. From the inside it's a cage that smells like flowers. The Tsuchikage's eyes had not moved from him. I can fight Madara's plan because of what I am, Naruto said. The Nika power, what Kurama calls the drums, it's the antithesis of the infinite Tsukimi. A dream that makes everything still versus something that makes everything move. Alive. He pressed his hand to his chest briefly. I'm not saying trust me because I'm strong. I'm saying trust me because what I want is the same thing every person in this room actually wants for the people they protect, even if how you're going about it is completely wrong. He looked at each Kage in turn. Ended on Danzo. And I'm saying if anyone in this room tries to put me in a box, tries to make me a weapon or an asset or a contained risk factor, I will walk out of this building and I will do what I'm going to do anyway, without you. And you will spend the next decade trying to catch up to something that didn't wait for your permission. The fire in the room's lamps guttered briefly, for no wind-related reason. Then the Raikage laughed. It was a huge laugh, from a huge man, the kind that started in the chest and shook the room, and it was completely genuine. I like this kid, he announced to the room. This is the most honest thing anyone has said in one of these summits in 15 years. I laughed, the Mizukage said warmly. That's either a great sign or a terrible one. Both, the Raikage said. That's how good things work. The Tsuchikage said nothing. He was looking at Naruto with an expression that had slowly changed over the course of the speech from skepticism to something that was grudging and real and quietly furious at itself for being real. You remind me, he said finally, of a person I knew a very long time ago. Yeah. I didn't like him either, the Tsuchikage said. He was always right. He picked up his tea. Sit down, boy. We have a summit to conduct. Danzo moved at the mid-afternoon break. Not publicly. Not in the chamber. In the corridor, with 3 root operatives positioned in ways that were technically random and actually weren't, he appeared beside Naruto while the delegations were filing out for the recess. A word, Danzo said. Naruto looked at the 3 root operatives. Looked at Danzo. Sure. They were in a corridor alcove, stone walls, a window showing gray sky and snow. Private enough. Danzo's route maintained positions that blocked sight lines from both directions. You made your position clear in there, Danzo said. His voice had dropped the summit register, this was his actual voice, the one under the performance. Older, more tired, more honest. You are not going to cooperate with oversight. I said I'd cooperate with reasonable oversight, Naruto said. Yours isn't reasonable. Mine is necessary. He looked at Naruto with the one eye that was visible, and there was something in it that wasn't quite contempt and wasn't quite respect and lived in the space between them. Do you know how many Jinchuriki have been captured by Akatsuki? 7, Naruto said. I know the count. 7-tailed beasts extracted. 7 people dead. Because they were not adequately protected by their villages. He paused. My methods are not compassionate. They are not kind. But they work, boy. The things I've done to keep this village intact, I know what you've done, Naruto said. The Uchiha massacre. Shirsue's eye. What you did to the children en route. His voice was level. I know. Something moved in Danzo's expression. Not surprise exactly. The recalibration of a man who'd assumed information asymmetry and discovered the assumption was wrong. You're 13, Danzo said. And you've been doing damage since before I was born, Naruto said. That doesn't make it invisible. He looked at the older man steadily. I'm not your enemy, Danzo. I'm not trying to bring you down. I'm trying to tell you that the world you're protecting, the one where every threat gets managed by controlling something, it's not worth protecting if what you're protecting is a cage. He paused. The village I love isn't the buildings. It's not the power hierarchy. It's Irika-sensei teaching kids to believe in themselves. It's Tuchi keeping his stand open even when the village told him he shouldn't serve me. It's Hinata standing up to Niji before anyone else would. He held Danzo's gaze. That's Konoha. And I'll burn down every system in it before I let something like you decide what it gets to be. It was the most direct threat Naruto had ever made to anyone. He made it in a conversational tone, looking at Danzo like he was explaining something factual. Danzo looked at him for a long time. You are either the most dangerous thing this village has ever produced, Danzo said, or the most necessary. Why can't it be both? Naruto said. Another pause. Then Danzo stepped back, and his root operatives adjusted, and the corridor was just a corridor again. We're not finished with this conversation, Danzo said. I know, Naruto said. I'll be here. Danzo walked away. Naruto watched him go and felt Kurama stir. He's afraid, the fox said. Yeah. Not of what you can do. A pause. Of what you represent. A person who cannot be managed is the only threat that genuinely frightens him. He has countermeasures for strength. He has no countermeasures for freedom. That's his problem, Naruto said. It will become a crisis before it becomes a resolution. I know. He looked out the window at the snow. Let it. Sasuke arrived at the summit building at 3 in the afternoon. He didn't knock. He walked through the front gate past the Iron Samurai, who reached for their swords and then very specifically did not draw them, something in Sasuke's chakra signature communicating the precise information that drawing would produce a response nobody wanted. He walked through the corridors with his Sharingan active, reading the building's layout and the positions of everyone in it, and arrived in the main chamber during the afternoon session while Mifune was attempting to bring the discussion back to Akatsuki and every delegation was variously ignoring him. The chamber doors opened. Every head turned. Sasuke stood in the doorway with his sword on his back and his team, Yugo, Suigetsu, Karen, arrayed behind him. He looked at the 5 Kage. At Danzo. At Naruto, who he hadn't seen in 2 weeks. Uchiha Sasuke, Mifune said carefully. This is a restricted summit. I know, Sasuke said. He walked in. The Raikage stood up. The chair he'd been sitting in slid back 6 feet. You, he said, and his voice was the sound of a dam deciding to break, killed my brother's partner. Sasuke met his eyes. B is alive, he said. I let him escape. You don't let, he's alive, Sasuke said. Ask him yourself. The Raikage's hands were shaking with the effort of not moving. Yujito. He was thinking about Yujito, Naruto could feel it in the chakra pressure. The loss of her, the loss of the 2 tails, the whole terrible accounting of what Akatsuki's campaign had cost in people. Why are you here? Tsunade asked. Her voice was controlled and tired in the way of someone who'd expected this and hadn't fully prepared for it anyway. Information, Sasuke said. He reached into his coat and put a scroll on the table. Not at any delegation's table, in the center, where everyone could see it. Toby. Madara's operation. The Eye of the Moon timeline. He stepped back. I've been inside their network. I know the infrastructure. Silence. Why would you give this to us, the Mizukage said. Because Madara's plan ends the world as a functioning concept, Sasuke said. And I have things I want to do in the world. The infinite Tsukimi is not useful to me. That's it, that Tsuchikage said. Self-interest. Is there a version of this you'd find more reassuring? Sasuke said. A beat. That Tsuchikage almost smiled. No, he said. That one actually I believe. Naruto was watching Sasuke. Sasuke had not looked at him directly since walking in, had been very precisely looking at everything in the room except him, which was the same thing he'd done in the Forest of Death after telling Orochimaru to take his eyes off his teammate, which meant something was happening that Sasuke hadn't decided how to articulate yet. Sasuke, Naruto said. Sasuke looked at him. Finally. There were things in his face that had been there since they were 12 and neither of them had ever managed to name without the naming making things worse. You're late, Naruto said. Something shifted. Not quite a smile. The ghost of one. I had to plan my entrance. The entrance was good, Naruto acknowledged. The samurai outside are going to be thinking about it for weeks. That was intentional. I know. He looked at his former teammate. Are you done with Orochimaru? For now. The curse mark. Sasuke's hand went briefly to his neck. Managed. Not gone. He paused. But mine. Not his. Naruto nodded. There were about 40 other questions he had, about the past year, about the gap in their shared history, about things Sasuke had done and chosen and survived. None of them were for this room. Sit down, Naruto said. It's getting interesting in here. Sasuke looked at the room. At the 5 Kage and the diplomatic delegations and Danzo in the corner being cold about everything. I can see that, he said. He found a wall and leaned against it, because Sasuke Uchiha did not sit in chairs in rooms where the hierarchy hadn't been established to his satisfaction. Naruto turned back to the chamber. The scroll Sasuke brought, that's the Eye of the Moon infrastructure. Madara's timeline is accelerating. He knows about the summit. He looked at the Kage. He probably knows about me. He paused. Which means the question isn't whether he's going to move, it's when. And whether we're in a position to respond when he does. We, the Raikage said. You said we. Yeah. You're not a Kage. You're not even a Chunin. No, Naruto agreed. But I'm the person the Nika fruit chose to eat it, and Kurama says the drums are the antithesis of the Tsukuyomi, and that makes me the most relevant person in this room for the specific problem we're facing. He looked at the Raikage calmly. If you've got someone else, I'll step back. A long pause. I don't, the Raikage said. He sat back down. Slowly. Like someone who just lost an argument to gravity and was making peace with the physics. Fine. Talk. The meeting ran 3 more hours. By the end of it, the scroll Sasuke had brought was in 4 copies, 1 per delegation, the 5th locked in the summit's official record. A loose coalition had been agreed to in principle, not a formal alliance, not yet, nothing with signatures and seals, but an agreement to share intelligence on Madara's operation and to coordinate response. The Raikage had not agreed to anything involving Naruto directly but had stopped objecting to his presence, which was diplomacy by Raikage standards. Danzo had been quiet for the final 2 hours. The kind of quiet that accumulated rather than dissipated. Outside, in the snow, the delegations began their departures. The Iron Samurai moved with the practiced choreography of escorts who'd done this many times, the right people at the right distances, the right deference to the right ranks. Gaara found Naruto at the gate. The Kazekage of the sand was wearing layers that the cold apparently still required even for someone who'd spent his whole life in the desert, which said something about the Land of Iron's commitment to the bit. He stood beside Naruto and they looked at the gray mountains together. Pirate King of Konoha, Gaara said. Yeah. That's going to cause problems. I know. Are you ready for that? Naruto thought about it genuinely. Not the performed certainty, not the bravado. Just, was he ready? I don't know, he said. I know I'm not going to stop. I know what I want the world to look like. Whether I'm ready, he shrugged, I'll find out. Gaara was quiet for a moment. When I was a child, he said, I was told that I existed to be a weapon. That my purpose was the village's purpose and my life was the village's life. He looked at his sand-scarred hand. Naruto. You changed that. Not by fighting me. By looking at me and saying something different. He paused. I want you to know that I understand what you said in there today. About the cage. He met Naruto's eyes. Don't let them put you in one. I won't, Naruto said. Same goes for you. I know, Gaara said. Something that wasn't quite a smile, from a face that had learned smiling late. I learned from the best. He walked back to his delegation. The sand around his feet left perfect circular prints in the snow that the wind erased almost immediately. Sasuke was outside the building, leaning against the stone wall around the corner from the main gate, where nobody was walking. Naruto found him there the way you found someone who wanted to be found, conspicuously alone in the one part of the building that wasn't in anyone's path. They stood together in the cold. The sky was doing the thing it did in the land of iron in the late afternoon, turning the flat gray a shade darker, the snow going blue-white, the mountains in the distance becoming outlines. "A year," Naruto said. "Roughly. You look different." "You look the same," Sasuke said. "Which is somehow more alarming given everything." "Is that your way of saying I haven't changed?" "It's my way of saying you've changed completely and it doesn't show on your face, which means it's structural." He looked at Naruto sideways. "The drums. Kurama told you about them." "Yeah. What are they?" "Old," Naruto said. "Older than us. Older than the shinobi world. Something that was in the world before it learned how to lock things up." He paused. "When they're loud, everything that's supposed to be closed, opens." Sasuke was quiet, processing. "And Madara's plan is the opposite. The infinite Tsukuyumi. Lock everything in a dream that never changes." Naruto looked at the mountains. "Yeah. Opposite. Then the final fight is yours," Sasuke said. "Not with resentment. With the specific honesty of someone who'd worked through what they could and couldn't do and made peace with the accounting." "I'm going to need help getting there," Naruto said. "You're the only person I know who can go toe-to-toe with someone at Madara's level and not die immediately. That's your standard for help. High praise from me." A silence that was not uncomfortable. "I was with Orochimaru," Sasuke said. It came out like he'd been deciding whether to say it for a while. "He taught me things. I don't regret what I learned. I regret some of what I did to learn it." He paused. "Itachi is dead." "I know," Naruto said quietly. "I know you know." He looked at the snow. "I used to think killing him would close something. It didn't." A pause. "It opened something, which is worse and better simultaneously." "Yeah," Naruto said. "That's how those things work. You're not going to tell me it gets easier." "No," Naruto said. "But it gets, yours. More yours. Less about him and more about what you do with it." He looked at Sasuke. "What do you want?" "To be useful," Sasuke said. Without irony, without armor. "Just the thing underneath everything else," finally said plainly. "Cool," Naruto said. "I can work with that." He looked back at the mountains. "The coat Sakura packed me is in my bag. You want it?" "You look cold." "I'm fine." "You're shivering." "I'm not shivering. It's a technique." "A technique. Controlled muscle microactivation to maintain core temperature." Naruto looked at him for a long moment. Then he reached into his pack, pulled out the coat, and held it out. Sasuke looked at it. Looked at Naruto. Looked at the coat. He took it. "Don't tell anyone," Sasuke said. "Wouldn't dream of it," Naruto said. Danzo made his move at nightfall. Naruto felt the root operatives repositioning before he saw them, 12 chakra signatures moving into patterns around the guest quarters, blocking exit routes, covering sight lines. The architecture of a containment operation, built by someone who'd done this before and knew how it worked. He was in the corridor outside his room when Danzo's operative came around the corner, and the operative's hand was already forming a seal. The technique hit Naruto in the chest. It was a binding seal, chakra-based, designed to compress and restrict the target's own chakra flow, the kind used on dangerous prisoners during transport. It connected with his rubber body and began conducting in every direction simultaneously, diffusing before it could concentrate into restriction, the rubber medium dispersing it the way a lightning rod dispersed current. The operative stared at his own hands. I know, Naruto said sympathetically. It doesn't work. He walked past him. Around the corner. Down the corridor. 2 more operatives at the main staircase. Naruto stretched his arm ahead of himself, grabbed the banister at the bottom, and let himself be pulled forward at speed, a slingshot motion, his body compressing and releasing, and cleared the distance before they could establish positions. He found Danzo in the building's private meeting room, alone except for 2 of his most senior root. The room was sealed from outside, chakra suppression seals on every wall, built into the building's infrastructure by Iron Country for exactly this kind of situation. The seals were very good. They needed to be good enough for things that were made of chakra. Naruto's body walked through the door. The seals grabbed his chakra and found the rubber structure and grabbed a human being who was also, fundamentally, not constrained by the things the seals were designed to constrain. Danzo looked at him. He did not look surprised, exactly. He looked like a man who'd known a plan had a weakness and had run it anyway because the alternative was doing nothing. You sent Root after me, Naruto said. I was securing a potential liability, Danzo said. In the land of iron. At the 5 Kage summit. While representing Konoha. Yes. That's an act of war against your own village's interests, Naruto said. Every intelligence apparatus in this building is running. The Mizukage has operatives in the walls. The Tsuchikage is old but his sensors are still functional. Gaara's sand is under this building right now. He watched Danzo's expression. 12 root operatives running containment protocol in the guest wing of an international summit building. How many people logged that? Silence. All of them, Naruto said. You just gave the other 4 villages evidence that Konoha's current leadership is conducting unauthorized operations against its own assets on foreign soil. That's not security. That's a catastrophic intelligence failure. He tilted his head. And you knew it would be. Yes, Danzo said. Still smooth. Because I needed to know the answer to a question. What question? Whether you could be stopped. He looked at Naruto with the exhausted honesty of someone who'd run out of moves and was deciding how to be about it. I needed to know if there was a containment that worked. Not because I wanted to contain you. Because if there was no containment, if you are truly unconstrained, then the contingency planning becomes entirely different. Naruto looked at him. You tested me. I needed data. You could have asked. You would have answered honestly. Yes, Naruto said. I wasn't certain of that. And now? Danzo's hand, the one wrapped and sealed, moved slightly. And now I know that nothing in my arsenal touches you. That your chakra is not isolatable. That you move through physical and chakra-based barriers without effort. That you were tracking my operatives before I deployed them. He looked at the table. I know the answer to my question. So what's the contingency? Danzo looked at him. For a long time. The fire in the room's lamp was doing something, pressed by something in the air. You, Danzo said. The contingency is you. Something in his voice had changed, not warmth, not capitulation, but something more honest than either. If you can stop Madara. If the drums are what you say they are. Then the calculation shifts. Then what you represent is not a threat to the village's stability. It is the village's stability. He paused. I am not a man who believes in miracles. But I have spent my entire life working toward a version of peace that requires me to be the world's most hated person. His voice, briefly, had something human in it. If there is another way, there is, Naruto said. Show me, Danzo said. Not with words. With results. Naruto looked at him. At the man who had done terrible things for reasons he believed in, who had built his whole existence around the necessity of those things, who was now facing the possibility that necessity was a cage he'd built himself. Okay, Naruto said. But Danzo. He met the old man's eye. When this is over, Itachi. Sure sway. The things you did to Root. You don't get to just, those exist. They happen to real people. He kept his voice level. When the war is done, we're going to have a different conversation. About accountability. Danzo's expression didn't change. I expected nothing less. I know. He turned toward the door. The operatives in the hall are fine, by the way. I didn't hurt any of them. I know, Danzo said. That's why the contingency is you. He found Kakashi in the stables, which was where Kakashi went when he was processing something. He was sitting on a hay bale reading his book with a horse looking at him in the way horses looked at people who were in their space without asking permission. Danzo tested me, Naruto said. I know, Kakashi said. I felt the root repositioning 2 hours ago. I was going to intervene if I handled it. I know. He turned the page. What happened in the room? He shifted. Naruto leaned against the stable door. Not all the way. He's still Danzo. But something moved. Kakashi closed his book. That Tsuchikage wants a side conversation tomorrow morning. Before the delegations leave. He wants to talk about your abilities in a tactical context. Okay. And the Mizukage sent a message to your room about a proposed exchange program. He paused. Of the romantic variety. Naruto blinked. What? She said you were, quote, very interesting for someone your age, and wanted to know if you were spoken for. Kakashi's eye curved. I think she was mostly joking. Mostly. Naruto did some math. She's like 30 years older than me. She mentioned that as well. In her favor, she seemed to find it funny. He stood, tucked his book away. Naruto. Today went, he seemed to be choosing between several words. It went well. Yeah. You made a room of 5 Kage listen to a genin for 3 hours and then actually cooperate. Sasuke is back. Danzo retreated from a direct confrontation. He looked at Naruto. When I took Team 7, I thought about what Minato would have wanted for you. I thought about what the 4th Hokage's son deserved. He paused. I think he would have, another pause, longer. I think he'd be a mess right now, honestly. A happy mess. Naruto looked at him. Kakashi very rarely mentioned his father. When he did, it landed with a specific weight that was different from everything else. Thanks, sensei, he said. Kakashi's eye curved and he walked back toward the building. Get some sleep. The Tsuchikage is insufferable at 6 in the morning, but he will absolutely schedule a meeting for 6 in the morning. Naruto stood in the stable with the horse, who had moved slightly closer while they'd been talking and was now close enough to breathe warm air on his shoulder. He put his hand flat against the stable wall. Outside, the snow was falling again, steady and indifferent, covering the land of iron in white. Somewhere under that snow, under the cold rock of the mountains, he could feel it, faint, warm, the opposite of iron and cold and locked up things. Tum. 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 The horse, remarkably, stamped one hoof in time. Naruto laughed. It echoed in the stable and went out through the cracks in the walls and into the cold and didn't stop for a long time. Chapter 5, Dawn of the Free. The moon had been wrong for 3 days. Not visibly, the moon looked like the moon, hung in the sky the way it always had, doing its tidal obligations without complaint. But Naruto could feel it. Something in the Nika resonance was sensitive to the eye of the moon plan's infrastructure the way a tuning fork was sensitive to its matching frequency, not attracted to it, the opposite. A sustained low-grade wrongness in the back of his chest, like a sound just below hearing, like the drums being interfered with by something that wanted silence. He mentioned it to Kurama on the 2nd day. The preparation is nearly complete, the fox said. Not alarmed. Certain, which was worse. Madara is accelerating. The Black Zetsu infrastructure, the roots of the plan, the things that have been growing under the world for decades, they are almost ready to flower. How long? Days. Perhaps less. How do you know? Because I have been alive for longer than your civilization, Kurama said, with the patient condescension of something ancient explaining itself to something young. I remember the last time something tried to cage the world. I remember what it felt like in the hours before. They were on the road back from the land of iron, the Konoha delegation 2 days into a 4-day return journey through the mountain passes. The cold was still doing its thing. Naruto walked at the front of the group with his hands in his jacket pockets and the sense of something building overhead, the way the air felt before serious weather. Kakashi came up beside him. You've been quiet. Thinking. About? The moon's wrong. Kakashi looked at the sky. Night, the moon at half, entirely ordinary looking. Wrong how? The Nika drums, they're being dampened. Something is interfering with the resonance. He looked at Kakashi. Madara's moving. Intelligence from Sasuke's scroll puts the timeline at, the scroll was a best estimate, Naruto said. Madara accelerated. He knows about the summit. He knows the coalition is forming. He paused. He knows about me. Kakashi was quiet for a moment. And he's going to move before we're positioned. Then we need to get back faster. We need to get back now, Naruto said. He stopped walking. Kakashi-sensei. The others can make the normal route. But I need to go ahead. Kakashi looked at him. At the mountains between them and Konoha, for days of road and pass and managed travel. At Naruto, who currently had a body that had renegotiated its relationship with distance. Define ahead. Significantly, Naruto said. He stretched his arm toward the nearest mountain peak. This was the thing about the Nika power that he'd been working on quietly since the night after the summit, the compression ratio. How much he could pack into a contracted state before releasing. He'd been thinking about it in terms of the physics. Rubber under compression stored energy proportional to the degree of compression, and rubber that had 9 tails chakra threaded through every molecule stored energy at a completely different scale. He grabbed the peak. Contracted his whole body, all of it, every limb and his torso and his neck, pulled into the smallest configuration he could manage, felt the pressure building, enormous, the energy density of a compressed spring the size of a human being filled with tailed beast chakra, and released. He cleared the mountain in a single bound. The wind of the passage disturbed the snowpack on both faces. An avalanche started on the far slope and he was already gone before it finished deciding to happen, his body extending on the landing to absorb the impact across a longer time frame, and then contracting again, and releasing, and he was across the next ridge. Below him, the land of iron gave way to the country between, and beyond that the fire country borders, and beyond that Konoha. You are doing the thing, Kurama said. The fox's presence in his chest was warm and alert and something adjacent to excitement. What thing? He was moving too fast for normal speech, this was the internal conversation, the one that happened in the space between heartbeats. The thing where you stop thinking about what you can do and just do it. Is that a problem? It is the opposite of a problem, Kurama said. It is what you are for. The mountains blurred. The passes that would take Kakashi's delegation 2 days became 20 minutes of enormous rubber-assisted leaps across terrain that had opinions about being traversed and found those opinions ignored. Naruto hit the fire country border at dusk and barely slowed. The wrongness in his chest was louder now. Not the drums, the interference. The anti-frequency. The thing that wanted everything still. He pushed harder. He felt Konoha before he saw it, the chakra signatures of the village like a song he'd known his whole life, every person a note in something he couldn't name but recognized completely. Irika. Tuchi. Hinata and her sister, close together, always. Gaara wasn't there, wrong direction, but the memory of him was somehow present in the way the village felt different now that more people were safe in it. And underneath all of it, building, the pressure of something massive activating. He landed at the village gate at a dead run and didn't stop. The ANBU at the gate said, "Naruto," and he was already past them. Through the market street, up the central road, people turning to look at him, not stopping to let them, his feet finding the fastest route through the village by some instinct that wasn't navigation and wasn't chakra sense, something older. He found Tsunade in the war room. She was there with Shizun and 4 ANBU captains and a censorine who looked like she hadn't slept and was currently looking at something only she could see with an expression of controlled panic. "He's here," the censorine said. "Not about Naruto. About something else." "What's the reading?" Tsunade said. "The chakra concentration above the village, I don't have a scale for this. It's like measuring the ocean with a teacup." "Madara," Naruto said from the doorway. Every head turned. "He's above us," Naruto said. "Not in the village. Above it. The Eye of the Moon infrastructure, the ghetto statue, the tailed beast extractions, the black Zetsu roots, it's all converging." He pressed his hand to his sternum. "The Tsukimi preparation is almost complete." Tsunade looked at him. "How long?" "Hours. Maybe less." He looked at the ceiling, through it, at the sky above the village and what was gathering there. "Where's Sasuke?" "He arrived an hour ago," Shizun said. "He's on the training ground." "And the others?" "The Alliance, Gaara is mobilizing," one of the ANBU captains said. Raikage's forces were already en route from the summit. 2 days out. "We don't have 2 days, Naruto said." He looked at Tsunade. She looked back, and in that look was everything, the weight of the village, the weight of every Hokage who'd held it before her, the weight of Jiraiya's belief and Minato's sacrifice and all the accumulated cost of a world that kept asking its people to give too much. "Go," she said. The sky above Konoha was wrong in the way that only became visible once you were looking for it, a quality to the light, a pressure in the upper atmosphere, the way clouds moved against prevailing wind as though something was organizing them from above. Naruto hit the highest roof in the village and stood there and looked up. Tobi was there. He could feel him, the mask, the performance, the actual person underneath both, Obito Uchiha wearing grief and ideology like armor and using Madara's name like a weapon. He was high above, positioned at the nexus of the converging chakra, the Eye of the Moon plan's final activation stage arranged around him like the petals of something that was about to open in the wrong direction. "You knew I'd come up here," Naruto said. "Not a question. I was told about you." Tobi's voice came from everywhere and nowhere, the Kamui space bleeding through, his words distributed across dimensions. "The fruit. The drums. The Konoha genin who fought pain and walked away." A pause that had curiosity in it. "I needed to see you for myself. And you're younger than I expected. People keep saying that." He looked up. "Obito." Silence. "That's the name, right? Not the mask." "Obito Uchiha. Kakashi's teammate." He watched the sky. "I know what you lost. Rin. The Third Shinobi War. I know the whole terrible story." His voice was not cruel. Not pitying. Just present. "You decided the real world wasn't worth living in because it kept taking the things you loved. So you're going to replace it with a dream where nothing gets taken. Where nothing gets lost," Tobi said, and his voice had changed, the performance dropping a register, the real person surfacing briefly through the mask. "You're too young to understand what it is to watch someone my parents died the day I was born," Naruto said. "The village I grew up in was afraid of me for 12 years. Every teacher I've had has died or almost died because of the world's wars." He paused. "Don't tell me I'm too young to understand loss. Tell me what you're actually afraid of." Silence from above. "You're afraid it doesn't get better," Naruto said. "That the real world is just, this, forever. Loss and war and the same cycles. That the only mercy is stopping the cycle by stopping the world. He pressed his hand to his chest. But Obito. A stopped world isn't mercy. A world that can't change can't get better. A dream that can't hurt you is a dream that can't love you. Something moved in the sky. The converging chakra shifted, not stopped, not reversed, but disturbed. A hesitation. It's too late, Toby said. But his voice was smaller. For what? For the things you're suggesting. The pieces are already moving. The ghetto statue has never dealt with me before, Naruto said. He pressed his palm flat against the roof. Kit, Kurama said. I know. Are you ready? He thought about that. Really thought about it, because this was the moment that deserved a real answer. He thought about Irika's face when he tied the headband on. About Jiraiya laughing over ramen and being terrible and brilliant simultaneously. About Sakura falling asleep on his shoulder because she'd decided he was safe. About Sasuke taking the coat and telling him not to tell anyone. About Gaara's sand leaving circles in Iron Country snow. About Kurama, ancient and vast and trapped and slowly, painfully, finding something that felt like kinship. About a red fruit that tasted like the worst thing imaginable and felt warm. Yeah, Naruto said. Let's go. The drums started. Not quiet this time. Not the bassline hum or the battle cadence resonance. Full. Complete. The sound that had been building since the archive and the bite of the fruit and every fight and every moment of genuine aliveness since, it came out of his chest like something being born, a frequency that hit the air and kept going, that moved through stone and sky with the indifference of something that predated the concept of barriers. The chakra signature that every sensorin in the region logged that night would later be described in terms that kept defaulting to light, not because it produced light exactly, but because it had the property light had of making everything around it visible. The sky above Konoha turned red gold at its edges. Every person in the village felt something, not pain, the opposite of pain. A feeling in the chest like the first breath after being too long underwater. Like a door opening. Toby felt it and the Kamui space fractured. Not broke, fractured. His dimension-traveling technique required a stable personal space, a pocket of reality he controlled absolutely. The drums hit that space and the control became negotiable, the stability became a preference rather than a law, and Toby materialized on the rooftop 6 feet from Naruto fully because the alternative was being trapped in a collapsing pocket dimension. He looked at Naruto. Naruto looked at him. The mask was half disintegrated from the frequency. The Sharingan underneath was red and spinning and scared. What are you doing? Toby said. Setting the rhythm, Naruto said. The infinite Tsukimi needs silence to work. It needs the world to stop moving, stop changing, stop being alive in the messy way it is. It's a lullaby. He stepped forward. I'm the opposite of a lullaby. Toby moved, the Kamui technique activating to make him intangible, to let attacks pass through. Standard. Against everything else, optimal. Naruto didn't throw an attack. He just kept walking forward, the drums pulsing out of his chest with every step, and the intangibility met the resonance and found that intangibility was a physical property and the drums were something older than physical properties. His hand closed on Toby's shoulder. The Sharingan went wide. This is Obito Uchiha, Naruto said quietly. Not Toby. Not Madara's instrument. You. The kid who loved Rin and followed Kakashi around and wanted to be Hokage. He met the Sharingan's gaze. That person isn't gone. You just built a lot of architecture on top of him. Don't, Toby's voice cracked. The real voice. Obito's voice. Don't do that. Do what? See me like that. He stopped. Harder, Naruto said. Yes. Good. He held his gaze. I need you to make a choice. Right now. Not because I'm forcing you, I'm not, I could just fight you and I'd win eventually, and you know that. But because you're the one who set this in motion and you're the one who can stop the final mechanism. He looked at the sky, at the gathered chakra still converging above them, the eye of the moon infrastructure running toward completion. Madara's plan ends the world as a living thing. You know that. You chose it because a living world hurt you. But Obito, he pressed his hand harder against the shoulder. A dead world never got to love Rin either. A dream of her isn't her. You know that. The Sharingan blurred. Not from tears, from the Kamui technique destabilizing as the concentration required to maintain it broke apart. Obito's hand came up and grabbed Naruto's wrist and squeezed, and his face was doing something it hadn't done in longer than he could count. It was just a face. Not a mask. Not a tool. A person's face, holding a person's grief. She's gone, he said. I know, Naruto said. She's gone, and it was the world's fault, and the world owes you something it can never pay back. He did not move his hand. But you can still choose what you do with the debt. What Obito did with the debt was turn the Geto statue's convergence mechanism inward. It was technically brilliant and medically catastrophic for him personally. Redirecting the infrastructure of the Eye of the Moon plan required channeling energy scales that a human body had no business containing, and what it did to him was something Naruto pressed his hand against to mitigate and managed to reduce from fatal to almost fatal, the drums resonating against the damage and buying time that shouldn't have existed. It stopped the Tsukuyomi from completing. It did not stop Madara. Because Madara was not the plan. The plan was Madara's, but Madara himself had been moving while the plan moved, and when the convergence failed he was already descending from wherever the Uchiha ghost had been operating from, massive, ancient, the chakra of someone who'd broken every limit the world had placed on people and replaced them with limits he'd placed on himself. He landed on the rooftop and the stone cracked under him, and he looked at Tobi's collapsed form and at Naruto standing between them. Interesting, Madara said. His voice was the same kind of certain as Pain's but the opposite in temperature. Where Nagato had been grief made cold, Madara was certainty made hot, the absolute conviction of someone who'd been right so many times that being right had stopped feeling like a discovery and become a posture. The fruit, he said. He was looking at Naruto with the attention of a scientist and the attention of a predator simultaneously. I had reports. I dismissed them. He looked again. I was wrong to dismiss them. First time. Naruto said. Longer than you'd believe. He studied the air around Naruto, the drum's resonance visible to him in the way only someone with the Rinnegan could see chakra's actual structure. The sun god Nika. I have texts about this power. Older than the shinobi world, older than chakra as a system. A god of liberation. His eyes moved from the resonance to Naruto's face. You're a child. You're several hundred years old, Naruto said. Does that help? It means I have perspective. It means you've been wrong for a very long time and gotten good at not noticing, Naruto said. Madara looked at him with something that was almost appreciation. You're not afraid. No. You should be. Probably, Naruto said. But being afraid of you would require believing that what you want matters more than what I want. And I've never been good at that. He stretched his neck, cracked it, ignored the way the sound of it hit the night air. Your plan failed. Obito redirected the convergence. The Tsukuyomi isn't completing tonight. There are other nights, Madara said. Then we'll be here for those too. I think, Madara said, that I'd prefer to end this now. And he moved. Madara at full capacity was not a fight. It was a natural disaster that happened to have a personal grudge. He hit Naruto with the first technique, a compression of chakra so dense it flattened the rooftop, and Naruto went through the roof and the floor beneath it and the floor beneath that and landed in someone's kitchen. He stood up. The kitchen was empty. He noted that he felt fine. He went back up through the holes. Madara was already casting the next technique. The Susanoo began to manifest, the enormous armored avatar, the full-body version, ribs becoming a full torso, becoming a completed warrior that stood taller than the buildings around it and held a sword that could cut mountains. The sword came down. Naruto didn't dodge. He set his feet, pulled his arms back as far as they would go, compressed every molecule of rubber and every thread of Ninetales chakra into the smallest possible configuration, and punched upward into the blade. The Susanoo sword stopped. Not broke. Stopped. Like it had run into something that simply would not comply with being cut. The rubber body absorbed the force and stored it, and Naruto's fist was inside the Susanoo's guard now, and he released the compression. The Susanoo staggered. An enormous armored chakra construct, the size of a building, and it staggered. Madara looked down at him. The Rinnegan was open fully, processing everything simultaneously, running calculations that would have taken a team of analysts months. Impossible, he said. Not upset. Fascinated. The force dispersion, the rubber medium, you shouldn't be able to match. I'm not matching it, Naruto said. I'm redirecting it. There's a difference. He stretched both arms upward, grabbed the Susanoo's shoulder plates, and pulled himself up the avatar's body hand over hand, the rubber absorbing every jutsu that fired at him on the way up, lightning, fire, wind, the combination techniques that Madara had developed over centuries of fighting the world's best and finding them insufficient. He reached the shoulder. The Susanoo tried to grab him. He stretched through the grabbing hand, contracted behind it, and arrived at the avatar's neck. He pressed his palm against the chakra structure. The drums went out at full resonance, point blank, into the Susanoo's architecture. The chakra construct had been built on certainty. On the absolute, unshakable premise that Uchiha Madara had decided what the world was and the world had not successfully argued otherwise. The drums were the argument. Not logic, frequency. Something that resonated against every locked thing and asked it a question it had never been asked before. What if you opened? The Susanoo cracked. Not structurally. The chakra network inside it developed inconsistencies, places where the certainty faltered, where the frequency of the drums found a harmonic and pulled. Madara felt it and his expression, for the first time, changed. Not fear. Madara had been too much of himself for too long to be afraid of something he could see. But underneath the Rinnegan's cold assessment was something that might have been recognition. The old power, he said. Yeah, Naruto said. I thought it was myth. Most true things are, for a while. He looked at Madara from the crumbling shoulder of his own Susanoo. You're not going to stop tonight. No, Madara agreed. But you're going to think about this. He looked at the Rinnegan, those 6 tomo, the eyes that saw everything as it was. Because you can see what I am. And you know that what I am is the antithesis of what you want. Not because I'm stronger. Because I'm free. He spread his hands. And the infinite Tsukimi can't cage the sun. Madara looked at him for a long moment. At the drum's resonance still moving through the Susanoo's chakra. At the boy standing on his own avatar's shoulder in a destroyed orange jacket with the absolute, unreasonable, constitutionally unchallengeable certainty of something that had decided what it was and would not be talked out of it. He released the Susanoo. Naruto dropped 20 feet and landed in the rubble of the collapsed roof, absorbed the impact across his whole body, stood up. Madara was still above, hovering, the chakra around him cycling down. Another time, then, Madara said. Whenever you're ready, Naruto said. I'll be here. Madara looked at him one more time. Then he was gone, not retreating, not running, just removing himself from the equation with the self-possession of someone who was choosing to stop rather than being stopped. The sky above Konoha began to normalize. The gathered convergence chakra dispersed in slow pulses, like a held breath being released. The drums faded to their baseline. The village was intact. Sasuke arrived 3 minutes later, which meant he'd been close the whole time and had decided not to intervene, and the decision had cost him something by the look on his face. He stood in the rubble of the collapsed rooftop and looked at the damage and at Obito's unconscious form and at Naruto, who was sitting on a chunk of fallen wall eating the last rice ball from his pack. "You let him go," Sasuke said. "About Madara." "He left," Naruto said. "Different thing." "You could have, not tonight," Naruto said. "Tonight was about the Tsukimi. The Tsukimi is stopped. Madara is a different problem for a different day." He looked at Sasuke. "You know that." Sasuke looked at the sky where Madara had been. His Sharingan was active and processing and frustrated in the specific way of someone who'd been ready for a fight that hadn't happened. "I had a technique ready," he said. "Something Orochimaru taught me. I've been developing it show me tomorrow," Naruto said. "Tonight I'm tired." Sasuke looked at him. "You're tired?" "The drums take it out of me," Naruto said. "Not like regular tired. Like, the full version takes something that takes a while to come back." He stretched one arm to its full extension and let it contract. "I'm fine. Just tired." Sasuke sat down on a chunk of rubble across from him. "Obito?" He stopped the convergence. "He's alive." "Barely." Naruto looked at the unconscious figure. "He needs a medic. He tried to destroy the world. He changed his mind at the end." Naruto looked at Sasuke. "That means something." Sasuke made a sound that was not agreement and not dismissal and lived exactly in the uncomfortable middle. "You do this," he said. "You find the thing in people that's worth keeping in you, what? You pull it out. Like it's the only thing there." He looked at his hands. "You did it with me. You did it with Gaara. Now Obito." He paused. "Don't you ever look at someone and decide they're not worth the effort?" "Not really," Naruto said. "I mean, sometimes people are wrong and dangerous and need to be stopped. But worth the effort," he thought about it, "that's different from being right. Obito was wrong. He was also worth the effort. Both." Sasuke was quiet. "My brother," he said finally, very quietly. "He was, everything he did for Konoha. For me. And it destroyed him. And I used that destruction as fuel for years. I know. Was he worth the effort? After everything?" Naruto looked at him steadily. "He already put in the effort," he said. "He already paid the whole cost. What you do with that isn't about whether he was worth it. It's about what you do with a gift that came at the worst possible price." Sasuke's jaw worked. He looked at the sky. Said nothing for a long time. "Then, how do you do that?" "What?" "Say the thing. The true thing. Without it sounding like a lecture." "I don't know," Naruto said honestly. "I just say what I see." "It's annoying," Sasuke said. "I know." He finished the rice ball. "You hungry?" "I think there's still food in the building." "The building has 3 collapsed floors." "The kitchen is fine," Naruto said. "I fell through it earlier." "Saw food." Sasuke stared at him. "You fell through the building. During the fight." "It was temporary." He stood, brushed dust off. "Come on. I'll tell you about the part where I punched the Susanoo." "You punched the, yeah." It staggered. He was already walking. It was great. The morning after was the kind of morning that came after things that couldn't be undone, clear sky, village mostly intact, the particular quality of light that arrived after a night that had been genuinely dangerous and hadn't become a catastrophe. The rebuilt districts were still new stone pale. The market was opening late. The ANBU change of shift happened with the focused efficiency of people who'd been on high alert and were releasing it in increments. Naruto sat at Ichiraku. Tucci had opened at dawn without anyone asking him to, because Tucci understood implicitly that some situations called for ramen before anything else. He set a bowl in front of Naruto without being asked. Naruto wrapped both hands around it and breathed the steam in. Sakura arrived 7 minutes later. She sat down beside him, looked at the damage to the jacket he was still wearing, looked at his face, looked at the bowl. "Tell me everything," she said. He told her. All of it, the drums going full, the confrontation with Toby, the conversation with Obito underneath the mask, the Madara fight and the Susanoo, and the moment the drums hit the chakra construct's architecture and it cracked. He told it the way you told a story to someone who was going to understand it, not the tactical summary version, the real version, with the parts that were scary and the parts that were funny and the part where he'd fallen through someone's kitchen and noted there was food. Sakura listened. She asked 2 questions, both of them precise and good. At the end she was quiet for a moment. "Obito," she said. "He's in the hospital." "Tsunade-sama's operating personally," Naruto said. She said maybe. "That's better than the alternative maybe." "Yeah." She looked at her own bowl, which had arrived while he was talking. "Pain. Niji. Danzo almost. Now Obito." She paused. "You have a pattern." "What pattern?" "You get to people," she said. "You find the real thing underneath what they've become in you, you make it possible for them to choose it again." He thought about what Sasuke had said last night. "You pull it out. Like it's the only thing there. Is that bad?" "No," she said immediately. "It's the most useful thing about you. Possibly the most useful thing about anyone I've ever met." She looked at him. "I just want you to know that I notice it. That it's a real thing you do, not just luck." He looked at her. She was doing the thing she did when she wanted to say something direct and was making herself do it, chin up slightly, looking at him straight, refusing the out. "Thanks, Sakura," he said. "Don't make it weird," she said, and started eating. Tsunade called a council at midday. Not the formal council, not Danzo's people, not the elders, not the apparatus of governance. The people who'd been in it, Kakashi, Sakura, Sasuke who'd somehow gotten information about the meeting and showed up unasked, Gaara who'd arrived at the village gate 2 hours before dawn with his Sanjounin escort and had been waiting with characteristic stillness, Killer Bee who'd come with Gaara because Killer Bee went where the interesting chakra went and he'd felt the drum resonance from the sand border. And Naruto. They were in Tsunade's temporary office, which was still the commandeered room from after Pain's attack, and she stood at the head of it with the mission log and the night's incident report and a cup of tea she hadn't touched. "Incident summary," she said. The Eye of the Moon convergence was initiated and interrupted. Obito Uchiha redirected the final mechanism at significant personal cost, he is stable. Madara Uchiha was engaged and withdrew voluntarily. She looked at Naruto. "He is still at large." "I know," Naruto said. "He'll come back." "I know. And the next time, will be different," Naruto said. "The drums disrupted the Susanoo's architecture last night. That was the first time they've been directed at someone at Madara's level. I learned something." He paused. "I need time to develop it." "How much time?" "I don't know yet." Gaara said, from his chair, "The alliance coalition that formed at the summit, if Madara moves again before you're ready, we can slow him. Not stop. But slow. He'll come for the tailed beasts," Killer Bee said. He'd managed to make the rhyme pattern minimal for the meeting, which everyone had silently appreciated. 8 tails. 9 tails. He needs them for the 10 tails revival. That's the path to the Tsukuyomi. "Which means he comes for us," Naruto said. He looked at Kurama internally, the fox's presence warm and attentive. "The 10 tails," he said. "If he revives it," Kurama said, "the scale changes significantly." "Not if we take away the option," Naruto said, out loud. Everyone looked at him. "The 10 tails revival needs the chakra of all 9 beasts," he said. "He has some. Not all. The ones he doesn't have," he looked at Gyuki. 8 tails. You. B pointed at himself. And me. He looked at the room. If we can get the other Jinchuriki, the ones who are still alive, into a protected position, Madara can't complete the 10 tails. He has to come to us instead of building toward us. He paused. And we choose the terrain. Kakashi was looking at him with the expression he used when he was deciding whether something was brilliant or catastrophic and landing on, brilliantly catastrophic. You want to bait Madara, Kakashi said. I want to fight him on our terms instead of his, Naruto said. There's a difference. Tactically, the difference is significant, Sasuke said. Everyone looked at him. He was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, Sharingan off but eyes sharp. Madara fights on his terms by default. His power level, his technique library, his experience, on open terrain without a plan, we lose. On terrain we've prepared, with the drums as the disruptive element, with every available counter, he paused. It's not a guarantee. But it's better than waiting. You're agreeing with me, Naruto said. I'm agreeing with the strategy, Sasuke said. Don't push it. Tsunade looked between them. At the room full of people who'd arrived from different directions and different histories and were currently pointing in the same direction. She picked up her tea. Finally drank it. Plan it, she said. All of you. Use this room, use whatever resources you need. I want a framework by tomorrow morning. She looked at Naruto. And Naruto. Yeah. Get some sleep first. You look tired, he said. I know. I'm going. He didn't go to his apartment. He went to the training ground, because the training ground was where things got sorted, and there was something still unsorted in him that sleep wouldn't fix. He sat in the grass at the center of the ground where he'd spent 100 hours working through whatever needed working through, and pressed his palm flat against the earth, and was quiet. The village carried on around him. The sounds of the afternoon, construction, market, the distant sounds of the academy, a kid somewhere yelling about something with the specific volume that meant they thought it was the most important thing that had ever happened and were probably right from where they stood. You did well, Kurama said. Not done yet. No. But tonight was the right kind of not done. A pause. The Tsukuyomi would have been the end of a certain kind of world. The world where things are still messy and loud and occasionally very stupid. Another pause. I prefer that world. I did not always. But I have been inside a person who loves it for long enough that it has become difficult to imagine preferring anything else. Naruto looked at his hand on the earth. Kurama. Yes. When this is over, the fox said, preempting him, the seal will still be there. We will still be here. I have made my peace with the arrangement. Something warm in the old voice. More than peace. Yeah, Naruto said. Me too. He felt the fox settle, not into the cage, against the bars. More like someone leaning against a wall they'd chosen, comfortable in a way they hadn't been before, the 9 tails arranged around the shared space with a kind of proprietary ease. Footsteps approached. Light, deliberate. He didn't need to look. Hinata, he said. She sat down beside him in the grass, close enough for her shoulder to be near his but not touching, which was her specific way of being present without demanding anything from the presence. She'd been helping with the medical distribution since Pain's attack, not fighting, the ground operation, which was in its own way harder. I heard what happened, she said. Most of the village heard. I heard the parts they're not talking about yet, she said. The part with Obito. What you said to him. He looked at her. Kiba's cousin is Anbu, she said, by way of explanation. Right. She looked at the training ground. The grass, the posts, the evidence of 1,000 hours of becoming. You talked him back, she said. From the edge. He did the work, Naruto said. I just said the thing, she said. You always know the thing to say. She paused. I used to watch you in the academy. You'd say something and people would look at you like you were stupid, and then 2 days later they'd be thinking about what you said and not knowing why. A pause. That was the drums, I think. Even before the fruit. That was already in you. He looked at her. She was watching the grass with the quiet certainty of someone who'd thought about something for a long time and finally decided to say it. Hinata, he said. You don't have to say anything, she said quickly. I want to. He turned toward her properly. Everything has been moving so fast. The fruit and the exams and pain and the summit and last night. And I haven't, he stopped. Started again. I see you. I've always seen you. I just haven't said it the right way. He looked at her directly. I'm saying it now. She looked up at him. The Byakugan eyes, gentle, the ones that saw chakra and saw the truth of things. A color came up in her face that was warm and real and not performed. Okay, she said softly. Okay, he said. They sat in the grass of the training ground while the village afternoon went on around them, and the drums in his chest were very quiet, just the bassline, the warmth of them, and the sound of someone breathing beside him who knew what he was and wasn't afraid. 3 weeks later, Naruto stood on the roof of the rebuilt Hokage administrative building in a new jacket. Not orange. Well, orange, but different. Something Sakura had found and Sasuke had wordlessly added a clasp to, and Hinata had stayed up one night doing something with the lining that made it warmer than it looked. It had a collar that turned up, and the spiral symbol of the Uzumaki clan on the back in red, and it moved when he moved in the way things moved when they'd been made for the person wearing them. The village was below, fully rebuilt in most sections, still finishing in others, the new stone paler than the old and the scarring from Pain's crater visible but worked around, incorporated, not hidden. Konoha had decided to remember its shape rather than erase it. Behind him, Tsunade was at her desk, her actual desk, returned to the rebuilt Hokage tower. The hat was back on her head, because the council had sorted out Danzo's interim appointment with the particular efficiency councils applied when they were motivated, and Danzo had not resisted the sorting. He'd been quietly cooperative in a way that was more unnerving than anything else he'd done. Naruto heard her voice from behind him through the open door. Your rank, she said. I don't need, it's not about need, she said. It's about the world knowing what you are in terms they can process. You're going into a war council next week with 4 other villages' representatives. They need a designation they can file. She paused. I'm not asking you to be constrained by it. I'm asking you to let me give it to you. He turned from the railing. She was holding a Chunin vest. Not the full Hokage commission, not a Jonin designation. A Chunin vest, which was so deliberately modest it was almost funny, except the look on her face was completely serious. You've been operating above this rank for months, she said. But rank is also visible. It says something. She paused. When Jiraiya trained you, even briefly, he told me you'd need something to stand on. Not a title. A position. Something that said I am here and I belong here in the language the system understands. He looked at the vest. It was standard issue. Green. Not orange anywhere. Sakura suggested adding a patch, Tsunade said drily. I told her no. He laughed. It came out full, not a chuckle, the real version, from the chest, and the drums resonated with it briefly and the air in the office felt briefly, entirely alive. He took the vest. Didn't put it on. Just held it. The pirate king of Konoha, he said. In a Chunin vest. The world is full of contradictions, Tsunade said. Yeah. He looked at the village. At the rebuilt skyline, the new stone, the monument with its 4 faces watching everything. It's my favorite thing about it. That evening, as the sun went down and the village turned the particular gold of a Konoha sunset that had been painting the same skyline for generations, Naruto sat with his team on the training ground. Kakashi was there, which he didn't announce, just appearing from a nearby tree in the way that was either impressive or irritating depending on your perspective and was usually both. Sakura had her medical texts out but wasn't reading them. Sasuke was standing at a training post doing something complex and dangerous with the techniques he'd developed, the kind of training that other people found alarming to watch and that Naruto found genuinely excellent. Naruto was doing the thing. The listening thing. Hand flat on the ground. Eyes closed. Not looking for anything, just open to what was there. The village. The earth. The chakra of 1,000 people living their lives above the old rock of the fire country, all of it moving in its messy, unplannable, fundamentally alive way. The drums underneath, warm and constant, the heartbeat of something that had been in the world before the world learned to be afraid. "You're listening for me," Kurama said, amused. "I'm listening to everything," Naruto said. "You're part of everything." "Smooth," the fox said, and there was warmth in the ancient voice that was still new enough to be startling. He opened his eyes. The sun was almost down. Sasuke had stopped at the post and was looking at the sky with the particular expression he used when he was thinking about something he hadn't decided to say yet. Sakura had set down her texts and was watching the last of the light on the village rooftops. Kakashi had his book out but wasn't reading it, which meant he was present in the way he was present when things mattered. "Hey," Naruto said. They all looked at him. "Whatever comes next," he said. "Madara. The war. Whatever the world decides to throw at us." He looked at each of them. "I'm glad you're in it." Sakura made a sound that was trying to be dismissive and wasn't. Sasuke looked away and said nothing, which meant everything. Kakashi's eye curved. The sun finished going down. The drums went quiet, not absent, just resting, the way a heartbeat was quiet when everything was okay, present without demanding attention, the warmth of something that didn't need to announce itself because it was simply, fundamentally, always there. The village lights came on one by one. Naruto Uzumaki, age 13, Chunin of Konoha, Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tailed Fox, wielder of the human fruit model, sun god Nika, self-declared pirate king of a village that was still figuring out what that meant, sat in the grass of Training Ground 7 and felt the world breathing under his hands and knew, not hoped, not believed, knew, that what was locked in the world was going to open. Not today. Maybe not soon. But it was going to open. And when it did, he was going to be there, laughing, drums going full, the whole impossible weight of freedom carried the only way it could be, lightly, openly, as though it had never been heavy at all. The drums answered. Tum. Tum. Tum.